Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went and we'd run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out and I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Adam Penning, welcome back to the
Thank
Nash
you very
podcast,
much.
mate.
Cheers for having me. Nice to see you.
Mate, it's a pleasure to have you back. Apart from that drive, it was pretty torturous before, mate. How have you been? All right?
Yeah, I've been really good, thanks, Hassan. It's I think it turned out longer than we both thought since we last linked up. So really, yeah, very kind of you to invite me back. And it's always nice driving when you get into rural Essex. It's nice when you get down here, and always nice to see your effervescent, smiling face as well. So
I'll take that, mate. Your first podcast, for people who haven't watched it, and this is a blatant plug to go and check it out. It was definitely one of the most popular I've done. The storytelling, as ever with you, mate. Yeah, it was incredible, mate. Like there were so many chapters in it. It was so varied. We're going to talk about a number of different things, but we're pretty much going to pick up from where we left off on that and talk about some other things in slight tangents, shall we say, mate, throughout the course of it. For you recently, before we get into the crux of things, I know you've had some success very recently, mate, but the general landscape in the past 3 years, I think, or nearly maybe 2 years since we last spoke, has it been pretty much the same with regards to your life, your lifestyle in terms of your angling 2 nights a week generally? Is that right?
So there's been my lifestyle has changed quite a lot, and the amount of now the amount of angling because of other factors is less. Probably when we last spoke, I was probably doing 3 nights a week because I was on a real campaign that I was trying to crack, so I was squeezing it as much as I could and angling with like an intensity that I didn't really even know that I had in me. So that was, but now, yeah, things have calmed down now, and you sort of like, when you look back, it's like, I imagine it's like, you know, when you get like a boxer or something, like too many hard fights, and I look back and I think, I don't know if I could get up to that level again in my angling, because it brought out the best in me, but it was very hard work. But now I'm going at it a little bit more sedentary sort of fashion, not sedentary, but I'm still I'm massively passionate and enthusiastic, but I haven't got a campaign on the go at the moment. I don't know where the next campaign would be because of the changes in my lifestyle. There will be more campaigns because for me that is the ultimate buzz, but really the end of the last campaign was October 21, so yeah, we're coming up to 18 months now, and but I suppose I needed a bit of recovery because that sort of 18 months that I put into that campaign took, you know, it takes its toll, the sleep deprivation and the mileage and the dietary changes that you have to endure because you're on the bank roughing it. You can do so much, but it does take a toll. And I thought that was probably the pinnacle of my angling. That then I think, you know, when I look back at when I was angling at 40, I was better than I was at 30, and I was, in my opinion, better at 50 than I was at 40. But at some point, I'm going to start coming down that side. And I think probably realistically, I might have just reached that pinnacle a little bit. Doesn't bother me in the least because I'm not trying to impress anyone or anything. But I think I've just about peaked in my powers, and now I'm sort of looking for new challenges, definitely. But at the same time, not probably going to compromise things as much as I did when I was on that last obsession, because that was sort of come hell or high water. I was going to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And luckily I did. Now things are a lot more work related fishing than going off for 3 nights and doing like tunnel vision. I'm getting it no matter what sort of fishing.
Do you think you'll miss that? You talked about ex-sportsmen, boxers, whatever it is. You get the whole scenario where you get footballers that have finished where they miss that sort of, I don't know, that intensity,
the rush
of
the
high.
intensity,
Yeah. And it's sort of, even though you feel you might be limited, and whether that be a physical thing, whether that be a mental thing, whether that be a time constraint thing, you still, that buzz, I don't know, once you have it, do you not feel you're going to crave it again?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I definitely, and I'm craving it now, just thinking back to that, when you're living that, it's the ultimate thing. It's the ultimate fix. I have a drug and alcohol free. Well, I have beers at weekend, but I don't have any. That is my fix. That hunt, that obsessional drive, and that feeling when you reach that. Hopefully that pinnacle is unlike, as it's unlike anything else. So, yeah, I am, just from talking it and starting to relive some of that in my mind. There will be a return to it, and it is the ultimate fix. So. I can't live without it for the rest of my days. I guess probably I've just thought, you know what? Let's be realistic. I'm going to take 2 or 3 years to get other projects off the ground and focus on that, and a few other peripherals, I should say, and I'll be ready for the next sort of hunt when it comes round. But partly hinging on a couple of tickets that I'm waiting to come up.
Okay.
And they haven't come up. So probably if one of those tickets had come up, this conversation would be completely different. You'd be saying, so you went straight from that into this one. And I'll be going, yeah, I'll be like that. So that's probably, actually, it's worked out that way. And the lack of tickets has come at the perfect time.
Yeah.
It's given me a little bit of rest, allowed me to refocus on other things. And hopefully when one of those tickets arrives, I'll be back on the obsession.
Yeah, mate. I think once it's in you, isn't it? And I think, as you say, like a lot of people, to go or to think of going into the future for however long, indefinitely, without that fix, I think it's quite hard. It would be a quite hard prospect, especially if somebody's done it over a course of absolutely ridiculous amounts of venues and years, mate. So, yeah, I think I look forward to seeing what the next chapter is in terms of that hunt. But we're going to conclude Grendon Lake chapter, mate. When I left you, I think you had pretty much everything bar Tyson, which is what you were chasing. But I think you doubled up on a few, and you'd been pretty successful, very successful in terms of number of bites. But pinning that one down was tricky. Talk to me about that and where you got to with regards to that, because I don't know if a lot of people can empathise, but there are definitely lakes where you're on, you might have caught a few of the A team or a few of the fish, and you want to stay on for that one, but at the same time, the repeat captures of others can sometimes, I don't know, taint it, sort of maybe, I don't know, discredit things for others that are on there. It's a very sort of grey, etiquette-y, strange area, isn't it, when it comes to stuff like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure what stage, because I fished from June to December of year one. So I fished a summer and an autumn and into the winter. Then the lake flooded really heavily, and then I came back in the spring and really struggled badly for a couple of months. So you haven't
come back in the spring.
Right, okay, so we're up to there. So that the first season was far beyond my expectations. It was incredible, and it was nice that I didn't want to catch just Tyson. In fact, for the first few months of being there, all I wanted to do was enjoy being there and catch fish. And because there were quite a lot of other nice fish in there, some of them were big, some of them weren't big. And, sometimes if you are lucky on one of those campaigns where you get the target fish early, it was like, oh, well, do you hang on and try and get some of the other ones that might even, some of them, be harder to catch, that are less frequent visitors to the bank in some instances, not in this instance. But so it actually panned out perfectly, because I was lucky enough to catch some really, really rare and notable fish from the stock before I got even close to catching Tyson. So it was up to about December, I think I caught about 45 fish or so. So in 6 months, there's 40 fish in the lake. So I'd already started to get a few recaptures. What I was doing was working really, really well tactically, which was mostly mashed up boilie and fish liquids and hemp, chopped tigers and stuff like that. and putting it on spots, and then just fishing tiny little hook baits with short links, and it was very, very effective. And then as it went into the winter, I started just fishing boilies with stringers and fishing them at range where the fish were, and that worked really well as well. And I went away from it sort of at the end of December when it froze over, thinking, well, just like unbelievable, not being able to believe, I should say, the amount of luck that I've been lucky enough to have, but also thinking, well, I can't wait for the spring.
Yeah,
like
prime time.
Yeah, I've pretty much lucky enough to catch the whole stock in the first half a year. In the spring, now I'm going back full on to try and catch Tyson, and it's prime time. And I went back with similar tactics as you would, having had such success, and absolutely crashed and burned. Like, from having left a lake where literally I hadn't blanked. I can't remember once I put it together. Every session I was lucky enough to catch. Bearing in mind there's only 40 fish in the lake, so it's quite low stock. It showed how well things were working. So to go from not blanking to going back, you think you're going to hit the ground running. And man, I struggled my absolute arse off. I mean,
same tactics, same what was working before?
Same tactics, different tactics. Ended up fishing zigs a lot. That just resulted in, I have a real hate affair with zigs.
Why is that?
Just because I hardly ever use them. And when I do use them, I seem to just foul hook fish. I had a 48 or 49 pounder foul hooked in the peck. I had another one that was, that one I got out and I weighed it because it was a fish I caught previously, and I thought I had to get it out of the water because it had tangled up my other two lines. It was a dark night and on a zig, and it was a mess. So I had to bite the lines and get it out to sort out the mess and get the hook out of its peck. But it was a fish that I thought was going to go 50 pounds. So I thought, I've got it out. I'm just going to see, how the weights of the fish are going.
Getting on, yeah.
And it was, I can't remember. I think it was 49 pounds. It doesn't matter, obviously. And then I just put it back. And then after that, I had another one, which was a fish that no one had seen, or I've not seen a picture of ever, which I just flopped over I was so devastated. It was hooked in a pelvic fin, and it was about 38, 39 pound black wood carving common. I'm just thinking, like, is it just me? And it had happened on other lakes as well. And then I started thinking, well, zigs are clearly effective and a brilliant tactic, but I was thinking, like, if this happens to me with fairly limited use, I wondered how many people are catching on zigs and never saying anything, And I've been out with mates, like good anglers who catch fish on zigs, and when, obviously, because they have got a modicum of integrity, but if it ever happens, they just obviously unhook it and let it go. So I know it happens, and it happened to me disproportionately. So it was a bit of a nightmare spring, and I really resolved moved on to zigs, I should say, because of the ineffectiveness of everything else I was doing, from fishing to fishing single. I tried everything, naturals, singles, stringers, all the things that had worked for me as well, zigs, and I started bouncing off, like, because I'm lucky, like you, I know lots of people who are far better anglers than me, and I use them occasionally when I struggle with sounding boards. So I'm having long chats with Dave Lane, and he's like, single yellows, mate, that's all you need. I'm like, really? Then Wild Boar would be saying the same thing, and then it'd be like,
classified Dan Wildboar as a better angler than you. He will take that.
No, Jake.
Good save.
And then it'd be like, you've got to get on the zigs, and I'd hear all these anecdotes from different fisheries, like Christchurch, at Lynch Hill. Like, all of the spring captures would be on singles or zigs. You just wouldn't get them on bait at all. And so I'm taking it, and I'm thinking, by this point, I blanked for February, went back in February. I blanked for all of February, blanked for all of March, all of April. And I had my first fish on about the 5th of May and thought I'd had a breakthrough, and then blanked for the rest of May. I mean, it was really, really difficult. I just couldn't get my head in the game, and I just felt like I was chasing myself around and moving probably more than I should. And
what do you think was going on? Were you almost overfishing it, do you think? or trying to vary things too much, or do you just think that the fish weren't? I don't know. Were there any changes, lake sort of weed growth wise, topography wise, bait introduction wise, other anglers wise, that compounded the reason why those fish weren't doing what they were doing so well the year before?
Probably some of those things. There weren't a lot of fish getting caught,
right?
But there's some very good anglers on there, and they were getting the odd. It would do a couple of fish a month or something. So there were fish to be caught, and suddenly I wasn't getting them. And I'm thinking, you first, obviously, the problem is you have this psychological thing to break through, that you had a tactic that had caught everything in a very short space of time, and suddenly it's not working. So you keep thinking, just go back to what you're doing, just go back to it. But when I did, periodically, it didn't work. And but then when you sit back and analyze it now, and I've seen it many times with other anglers, if you get someone who dominates a lake doing a particular thing for a season, it never happens in the following year.
Yeah.
Very rarely, very rarely. And that was certainly the thing with me, that I had to completely go away, recalibrate everything, and come back with something new, because whatever, I think it was almost like what I had done in that sort of blitz of those 6 months had been so effective that they wouldn't come near it now. Because for all the one, so if I caught like 45 or 43 carp or something, and there's only 40 in there, then with that number of X number of repeats, I think probably 10 repeats. And so most of the stock that I managed to catch, but bearing in mind that every one of those captures, other fish would have been with it. They would have been, they would have seen what's going on, and there would have been a nervousness and a reluctance to come back on the spot because I'd been lucky enough to tag so many. So anyway, I'd gone away and I'd had a bit of a reset in the autumn, actually leading up to the winter, which put me back on boilies. I thought, actually, historically, these fish had responded well to boilies. I'm going to go back to fishing long links with a 3-bait stringer, circle stringer, and just cast it where I see them. Now, the lake was quite weedy, but I was at a stage where if I felt the lead hit the bottom, I was happy to leave it. No wrapping sticks, no marking up, no spom, nothing. And occasionally I put a few out with a throwing stick or something. And usually while I was fishing, I might dot a few in areas where I wasn't fishing.
Okay.
And that actually proved to be, and in my mind, I thought, you know what? If I'm going to catch Tyson, I just absolutely knew with total conviction that it would be on a bottom bait, the same as just a boilie laying on the bottom with 3 baits and a stringer dissolved around it on a 14 or 18 inch hook link with a 4-ounce lead on a clip, put where I'd seen the fish. And that was what I caught well on in the winter up to December when it froze, and caught a couple of rare ones, like some incredible fish. And then I probably should have, in the spring, I should have just come back and just used that. And because the lake was fishing hard and little was getting caught, it was probably just because the lake had been heavily flooded. And as you'll know, like a lot of the time when you get a huge influx of water, it can mess up the fishing for a period of time. So I was dealing with that, but I hadn't really absorbed that with the level of importance that it needed. And I just expected to catch, I was probably just carried away on my own hyperbole, like thinking, well, like I've got something going. The lake, I love the lake's being kind to me. I should be able to just go back and keep catching. So whenever you're in that situation, you always get kicked in the bollocks by the fish and the carp gods. And I should have seen that coming as well. So anyway, eventually I've gone back onto the long links, the stringers, and fished the summer. It was interesting actually. I was using a very nutty a peanut bait. Well, I was using Manila and catching all right, but I was catching just the commons. And
do you think that's a thing in terms of selecting commons? Do you think there is like a preference with regards to bait, flavours, anything you can do?
100%.
Obviously Tyson's a big old common, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, it was the other way around actually. I was using the krill once it got warmer, so I was using the fish meal. So there was weed coming up, and I was using the fish meal, and it was weird that the fish that I was after were the hierarchy were big commons, and when I started catching mirrors. I caught some really nice mirrors that were like 27 pound and 20, really nice, quite rarely caught fish on the krill. And I thought, right, but then I caught like 8 or 9 fish, and they were all mirrors. and the ratio is flipped the other way in terms of the stocks. I'm thinking, right. So then I started looking at bait preferences historically on the lake, and Sell had done very well in years gone by. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go on the Manila for the rest of the season and see if it makes difference. First trip, a big common. Second trip, a good common. Third trip, and it was I would still catch the mirrors, but I started catching the commons as well. Whereas when I was using the fish bait, I only caught the mirrors. So there was clear preference.
You found that elsewhere?
Raspberry.
Yeah,
Raspberry definitely was historically, and while I was fishing it, was dominated by oily, not necessarily oil, but rich dark fish meal baits. When there was 40 fish in 120 acres, that was what they liked. And I went on there using Cell, which, you know, I would still say is one of the best baits I've ever used. And I had complete and utter faith in it. Everywhere I'd used it, it worked. So when I went to fish Raspberry, I would just use Cell. Sometimes I put a bit of background feed if I'm dropping from a boat, you know, hemp and what have you. And it was interesting. One of the other anglers said to me that he wanted to, wanted to change bait because he was using Cell, and he had gone out. I'm like, don't worry about your bait, mate. Cell's brilliant. And I had always struggled on that lake anyway, partly because I'm not a very good boat angler. I hated the planes. They did my head in. You know, it's like down there.
Yeah.
And so I'd never really clicked with the lake, but I never would have thought it would have been a bait issue. And so this guy said to me, he'd gone out and he was looking at all of his boilies, and they'd all been pushed off the spot, and all of his hemp and his tigers and that would always be gone. I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He said, I know mainline boat's brilliant, and it is. I'm not knocking anything. We're talking about site-specific preferences. And he said, I might see if I can get something like Assassinate or something. I was like, well, yeah, give it a go. But like, I'm sure the Cell will be fine. And I caught some fish at Raspberry on Cell, but actually I caught them on a yellow pop-up.
Right.
And I started wondering if they'd really eaten in it. And so, and then I was fishing down at the Cons, and I was talking to Kenny Dorset. Massive respect for Kenny, lovely guy, huge credentials. And we were feeding some fish in a snag, and we started talking about bait. And up until that conversation, I really was naive to the site-specific nature of certain baits. And he told me how Activate, when it was first out, like no one caught at Horton using it. You murder them on a Grange, but the Activate is one of the greatest baits ever made in the history of boilies. He said, yeah, it just didn't work there. And I was like, really? I thought a good bait is a good bait is a good bait. It will just work. And he said, no. And then I started to really think about the Cell at Raspberry. And so then I made a switch on to the best fish meal, I think, in my opinion, then. So we're talking about 2010 or 11.
Yeah.
Was probably Atlantic Heat, I think it was called, from Bait Works. Really nice bait. And I thought, and it when I looked at the history of the preferences of the Raspberry fish, that was that sort of bait. I changed to it, and I certainly never set the world alight, but I caught more fish as a result. So to answer your question, had I seen it elsewhere? I had seen it there. So at Grendon, I'd moved on to the Manila. I thought, I'm just going to fish the Manila. I'm going to fish long links, stringers, and if I feel a drop, I'm only fishing where I've seen fish or signs of fish. That's it. So if I get a drop fishing like that in an area where I've seen fish activity, that's it, I'm leaving it. And it was interesting that the more bait I put out over the rigs, the less I caught. It was something I had to learn as I went on. So I started off putting maybe 10 baits over each stringer, and or I might leave one with no bait over it. It'd be that one that went. Because if you made your if you laid it out looking too much like a trap, they knew.
Yeah.
3 boilies, like I mean, 4 boilies, ostensibly, like with the melted stringer laying on, but it does not represent any danger at all. They're just eating it.
Hook bait wise, out the bag.
A toughened one, but exactly the same. Exactly the same. And that was it. And then my fishing went up and up and up. And I found myself, even though the tactic was so diametrically opposed from what I'd used in the first summer, which was tight bait in, loads of tiny bits and oils and liquids and everything else. And it was so different from that. It was as much of a leveler as that had been. And suddenly it started going up. And I was like, my God, my rig consisted of 2 components. 2, a hook
I like it.
and a hook link. That was it. And I went longer and longer because I started thinking, I mean, there were bits of weed on the bottom, so I did it partly for that. But I'm also convinced that tying the hair KD style, so that big boilie came off after 1 turn, so it was off the eye. So when the fish picked it up, they weren't moving off with an 18-inch hook link until it tightened up, and then they were thinking, oh, they knew straight away as soon as, so the lead hadn't come into play. They're picking that up. The hook, so when you pick a rig up like that and you pick it up by the boilie and it's coming off the eye, that hook is dropping straight down in that KD sort of. So it's going in the mouth, the hook's dropping down, and straight away they're realising something aliens in the mouth, they want to get rid of it, and then they blow it out. And that boilie from revolving, from hanging off the bend to all the way back past the eye by like a good inch, is like a hammer, like a 20 mil bait. Like you see how a carp, that velocity of water ejection, that would absolutely hammer that point like no other rig would. It was incredible. And I'm certain that was one of the key things that tripped up some of these riggy fish. So you had the first instance that it was a bait that all the fish liked, not just the mirrors. And I'm sure there were other baits I could have used, but that's what I was using and it worked really well. And then you had a style of fishing which would allow me to get onto fish and go cast and leave it. No spot finding, nothing. Then you had a trap, in inverted commas, which was totally innocuous and not suspicion arousing at all. Nothing wafty about the hook bait. Like people are like, why don't you put a wafter on it? No, they're just eating boilies that are laying on the bottom. Just they treat those as safe because they never get caught on them ever. No one, Simon Crowfish is like that, but hardly, most people, they want to do whatever they can to add as much gayness to their hook bait as they possibly can to make it shout, here I am, eat me. And what happens when 98% of the entire angling population is doing something to their hook bait to say, eat me? Well, carp don't like getting caught, and then very quickly, I know a lot of it is what I call because of or in spite of. So if you've got 98% of the angling population using bright, shouty hook baits, then any carp that get caught will be caught on those. Because that's what, not in spite of, like, because that's what most people are using. It doesn't mean that is the most effective tactic. No. And I've fallen into the same trap before, gone to lakes like, remember Linear back at 15 years ago, and Roy and people were like they're getting all on bright hook baits. So you go there and you think, right, I've got to fish bright, but you fish one that is a match the hatch, and suddenly like more bite. You think, flipping hell, I'm getting all my bites are coming, so you change them all over, and you end up having ridiculous sessions because even then they knew they were dangerous. And you see it, I might have even talked about on the last one, so apologies if I did, but you see it in terms of the bird life reaction. Like if you think back 10, 15 years and beyond, we were hooking coots and tufties like by accident, like nobody's business. They would dive down and get nailed. You hardly see people catch birds these days because the birds flipping know. Do you know who catches the most birds on my lake? Where I'm fishing? Me. Because I'm fishing a boilie on the bottom and the tufties go down and think, oh, that's safe, and they have it. They don't actually. Usually I laser them off. But like if there's birds, like when I've been on Sandhurst, Bayswater, if there's someone up first thing in the morning and they're playing, getting bothered, but it's me. And I don't see anyone else catching birds. That's got to tell you something.
Yeah. They've cottoned on, haven't they? They know.
100%. And I know bright ones work. But for me, you look at any underwater film footage, you look at fishing, stalking situations, they will eat a brown boilie laying on the bottom without hesitation. They might eventually take the pink one because by then they've got greedy. But why, if you've got 30 boilies laying on the bottom and a carp comes on the spot and he's picking up, he's thinking, oh, I'm quite enjoying eating these. And then he comes across the spot and he comes to your hook bait, which is totally different. You're then introducing choice into the equation. And by that point, you've made it 50-50.
Yeah, it's 50-50,
It's 50-50. He might take it, he might not. If you give him what he's already eating, there's no choice in the equation. And I know it's really simplistic, but that's how there's never, in my opinion, been a better time to fish retro simplicity rigs and tactics, because everyone's rigs have got whistles and pistons and springs and coils and I'm like, my God. So literally my rig has got two components. And then you look at in a publication or something, how to make the things you need to make this rig. Flipping heck, really? You go down to like 11, 12. It's like, what the hell? And the more of that and put it together with a bait that is all light and wafting around with all the displacement from the carp, and it's bright and it's got chemicals squirted. It's like, we're really making it easy for the carp now because everyone's doing it. If it was just you doing it, but once you get to saturation levels like we're trying to hunt down ostensibly wild animals by doing the same thing all the time. How many wraps, mate? Oh, 14 wraps. Right, okay. Pink pop up. Right, okay. And everyone's just rinse and repeat doing the same thing. And they're scared psychologically. They're scared to break out of that and do their own thing. And doing your own thing is like, it's a whole other subject. But anyway, so I'm fishing with these stringers, and I'm convinced that if I can get myself in the right position, I'm going to catch this fish, Tyson. On a very long link and a 3-bait stringer, a circle stringer.
Yeah.
Terry showed me that in 1997, and it was an edge then. But he said, "Good." So I bet someone watching this would have said,
"Of course they won't."
Oh, Pennings going on about 3-bait stringers like he just invented it. I'm not. I'm saying that like been around. It's one of the things that's been forgotten. No one hardly uses them now.
No, they're proper old school, aren't they?
Proper old school. And there's never been a better time to fish with that simplistic sort of tactic. And 3 boilies. So when you've got the hair coming off the eye, like I said, KD style, it can obviously tangle. But with that triangle of bait slid over the top, it stops the tangles. It gives you that deadly hair pivot point. It makes the hook drop down. It protects it from any detritus on the bottom. And you just end up casting, feeling, even if it's a soft drop in silt. But Tyson was on a soft. So the summer went on, and I was. So going back to your thing, you said right at the top of this about repeats.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
So by the end of September, I was up to about 70 fish at this point, still not caught Tyson. There's only 40 in a lake, right? So I'm getting a lot of repeats. Now, the only thing you can do, if you're determined to stay the course and maintain that mental fortitude and required positivity, because once you let negativity come into your angling, it's like game over. You have to, same with life.
Yeah. True.
So to maintain that positivity, you cannot let a recapture deflate you in any way.
No.
You have to go from, I'll flip it, to, oh, hello, mate. Oh, so I've not seen you for a month, or I saw you last year, or to going, oh, how you doing? Let me just pop the hook out and I'll let you go. Oh, fantastic. I've got another bite. Let's get the rig out there. So you turn it around from being a negative experience or a tainted experience to something's positive. I've got another bite. Every bite I get, I'm getting closer. It's a step closer. It doesn't matter if it's a face that I've seen before. He might be fed up with seeing me, but he's lovely. Look at him. Oh, he's got lovely fins. Oh, if I've caught him once before, I might take another picture because he's, but if I've caught him more than that, I'll just let him go. But it's a positive outcome. So that's the way that I dealt with it. And if I hadn't have done that, it probably would have ground me down.
Yeah. Why do you think that carp, having that many fish and the probability, and I'm just going through simple probability here, was it a case of that fish just evading you by pure chance, or was it because you potentially weren't fishing an area where it had come from, or something along that line? Do you think there was any particular reason why that didn't sort of grace your net earlier?
I think I probably lost it. Right. Realistically, because if I'd hooked that amount of fish, I mean, some of the fish that there was one particular fish in there called Geordie, which arguably, well, definitely one of the greatest carp I've ever caught. I caught it not long after starting on the lake, and it was a fish that was so rarely caught they thought was dead.
I remember you telling me.
Right, so
it's a mega fish.
Incredible carp. And then I caught him again 2 or 3 months later, just under £50. Now, if you can get a fish that's as rarely caught as that twice, and I caught some other ones which were very rare, much rarer than Tyson's probably a twice a year fish, but I'm catching fish that are a lot rarer. And during the course of that time, obviously, I have lost a couple of fish. So I think probably I had lost him, but then it becomes like Simon Scott at Burfield, you know, when you're trying to catch a fish which is, with Burfield Commons obviously levels. I mean, you're trying to catch a fish which is incredibly difficult to catch, and you think you've already hooked it and lost it, which Simon had to go through. Yeah. And then you're thinking, right, so now the game's changed from having to catch the pinnacle to having to hook it twice. I mean,
yeah, you can get in your own head massively.
Yeah, how do you go? You think like it's a mountain to hook it once, and now you've got to do it twice, and then so I think probably I'd lost him, but I tried not to think about it too much. And I'm not putting Tyson anywhere near on the level of Burfield Common, but just if you're trying to catch something and you think you might have lost it, it can. You think you've got it all to do again. So I try not to think about that. But with the analysis downstream, retrospectively, I think I probably almost definitely had lost it at some point.
Yeah.
So it was just simply a matter, in my view, of going through the repeats and trying to keep the bites. If I was sure that if I kept the bites coming and I always fished where I saw fish, then I would catch him. And that was sort of augmented by, in September, I caught a carp called the Long Common. It had not been caught for 2 years.
2 years?
2 years, right? On a lake that's got 15 swims. And on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, you could have 10 people on midweek. How the hell does that happen? Like, and so I thought it was Tyson, right? Because it was the fight, the heaviness, the whole thing. I landed this common, I'm like, what the hell is this? And it turned out it was a long 2 years it had not been caught, and it was 44-14. To me, that's like, right, whatever I'm doing, this free bait stringer, long link, just cast where I'm seeing, I can catch, if I can catch that on it, I can catch.
2 years, that's ridiculous.
Insanity. Incidentally, his capture 2 years ago came from the same area, and which was on a zig, and his previous capture to that, which was also on a zig, had also been in the same area. So he hadn't been caught on bait for years. And his two captures, but interestingly, all three captures, the two on the zigs and mine, had all been in this same little area of water. So he was clearly a territorial fish.
Tyson the same in terms of his track record, or spread out?
Spread out.
Oh.
So all I really knew was that he would eat. I mean, he had obviously been caught on pink pop-ups and so on, because that's what people used. I didn't want to catch it. I didn't want to catch him. Like, I don't fish like that. I thought, oh no, I just want to catch him my own way. And as I said, I'd become convinced from the outset that 3 boilies and a hook bait that matched, laying on the bottom, if that was in front, I just had to get it in front of his nose, and he was eating it. That was it. So when I got out of bed in the morning and it was 100 miles to the lake, I'd drive to the lake and I get it down. The distance between me and Tyson has gone down from 100 miles to 99.5 miles. Then I've got to do laps and laps of the lake and get it down to an area where I think he might be. And then I've got to get it down to a part of the swim where the bubbles come, which might be him fizzing. And then I've got to get it down to the length of a hook link. So I've gone from 100 miles. Maybe that's why I was using such long hook links.
2 acres, bang.
But it was a process of distance reduction.
Is that how you mentally thought about it? Yeah.
Because if I get that combination in front of his nose, he's going to eat it. So I've got 100 miles between me and him, and I've got to get it down to 15 inches, which is the length of my hook link.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have caught him quicker if I fished 30-inch hook links. But anyway, so that was my sort of, and I was convinced that would happen. So the other thing, Hassan, which was really a key part of the cognitive process, and avoiding psychological debilitation from other anglers who were really good, who had sometimes more time than me, certainly as much, very capable. You think, right, okay, we're coming into October. Everyone knows it's going to do an appearance.
It's due, yeah.
It's due. You've got lots of good anglers. A lot of them live right near to the lake, and you have to accept that it's probably not going to be you. Right now, that was a big part of the psychological breakthrough for me. Going, do you know what? It's going to come out in October. How is it going to? There's 35-man syndicate, 15 swims. It's like a lot of pressure. So you got two choices. You can either go hell for leather, hell bent, thinking I've got to make this me, otherwise I'm going to be on into the next year or maybe the year after, and so on and so on. Or you can do what I did, which was go, it's going to come out in October. It probably isn't going to be me. So what am I going to do about it? What I'm going to do is I'm going to angle with such intensity that I'm going to force an additional capture in September or in November or December through pressure fishing. I'm going to make what would have been one capture in October and it won't come out until the following year. I'm going to accept that one capture is going to come out to someone else. And don't worry about it. Do the pictures. Love the moment with them. Shake their hand, buy them a bottle of wine. And don't worry about it. And instead force him to make a mistake outside that one window.
How?
By pressure fishing.
What's pressure fishing?
Pressure fishing is just the intensity of your own angling, what you're prepared to do, how many times you're prepared to move, how much you're prepared to be up during the night, how many trees you're willing to climb in a day, how relentless you are going to be in the pursuit of getting your next bite, which might not be him, but every bite was a step in my mind was closer to him. What am I prepared to do to get the next bite, the next bite, the next bite in terms of my effort and intensity? And if I do that and I am getting bites, then the outcome's inevitable unless he dies or I die. There's only one thing that can happen. So that was how I looked at it and measured it. And ironically, as we went into October, I caught him. So that one capture that I had resigned myself, someone else, it actually was me, and it didn't come out till the following year. So it was really weird. But that was my mental preparation, and it could easily have been someone else. Like when I caught him on that Tuesday morning, there had been at the weekend every swim had been taken, and when I was there on the Tuesday, it was actually quiet for a Tuesday. There were 6 other anglers. So it could easily have been someone else. Easily. And I only managed to get in the swim that I wanted to get into because one of the guys, and I had seen one, so it had rained all night, like cataclysmic movie rain all night. And when I got up and left for the lake at about 4:30, because it was autumn then, it was getting light, about 5:30. It's still the only journey, I think, in my angling life where I've driven that amount of distance with the wipers on full speed the whole journey, and it weren't even fast enough. It's like, wow. But as I got to the lake, it stopped and got out, taking the air and I'm back. This is game on. I saw one fish show that morning, and it was in an area where I'd seen them show on previous sessions, which was long out to off the point swim, but slightly to the one side. It was a little area, probably the size of this little room, where quite often I'd seen them show over the preceding couple of months. And I had seen 1 or 2 fish show, which were really big and in my mind were very probably were Tyson.
How long is long? How we talking?
Yeah, so for me, 20 wraps is a long way. This was the limit of the swim. It's about 9,500 yards.
Okay.
So yeah, longish.
Yeah.
By modern terms, not long at all. But anyway, so I've seen this one show, and it was one of those mornings where nothing else happened. There wasn't a bubble. There was nothing. And you do find that, don't you? More in the autumn, they become all nocturnal activities, and then you get there at first light and you don't hardly see anything. But 8, 9, 10 in the evening, or 1, 2, and that's, But anyway, so I'd seen this one show, and I thought, right, I need to get as close to that one show as I possibly can. But I couldn't because of other anglers. So I thought, right, I'm going to set myself up in a swim where I've got a reasonable view, and I'm going to make a cup of tea, and I'm just going to watch, not put the bivvy up. So I did that, and about an hour into doing that, the swim opposite me was the point swim. The guy was packing up. I was like, no, it can't be. It was like, no, he's probably just pottering around, like just fiddling around, just doing a bit of admin or something. Don't get your hopes up. I looked, no, he's packing up. So threw my gear in the van, drove around there. It was Mark, the head bailiff, was packing up, and he was going. He'd not seen anything, and he was off home. And getting in that swim gave me access to this one single show, which I'd actually seen from a different bank. It's always hard, isn't it, when you're trying to triangulate a spot when you haven't seen that show from the swim that you need to be in. So I thought, when I'd seen it, I thought that's got to be that same 10-yard square zone where I'd seen him on previous sessions, and it was very unexploited. And I caught a couple of fish off it. It'd been good for me in the winter, but right, that's it. That's the only show. Just fish where you've seen the only show of the whole day, because on a day where they're a bit moody and they're not really up for showing, you might have 1% or 0.5%, if that's possible, of a stock that's active enough to show. But because you've seen one show, they could all be there.
Yeah.
But only one of them's just shuffled and come out. That's enough. So I got myself in there and, fished the same tactics out at all 3 rods in this area, and ended up catching him just before first light the next morning, which was just like the greatest emancipation that I just like, because when you're playing, I'd had so many other fish that had beguiled me into you, or you let yourself
believe that it's the one, didn't you?
And then you're crushed. So you stop thinking it. No matter how hard or heavy it feels or whatever it is, you just think, no, don't think about that. Just it might be otterbait again, or Geordie, or just like, probably not Tyson. But as this fight went on, I started to believe, and it was still dark. It was just starting to, in the very distance, you see a faint glow, and I got it in from out there to down to about 40 yards, and I'm starting to get that ache in my right shoulder joint, which I only get from really heavy fish. This is definitely one of the real significant ones. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just, and then I heard it wallow and cough and gurgle about 40 yards out, and it's like it's done this. I say the hairs on the back of my neck, but I just shaved them off this morning. But and then I dared to believe. I thought this, and my mouth's going dry now just thinking about it. And I thought this is it. This could be like. It was like, I just thought this could be at the end of the journey. And it came round and it tried to get round this bay, and I managed to get it back, and it's gurgling on top again, and I've got it in the net, Hassan, and I'm like, I'm not right. I secured the net, and because I'd never have a head torch on.
No.
And I've secured the net, and I've gone back to the bivvy, and I sat down and thought, like, that was just like, it doesn't matter what it is. I've just had the most amazing experience. Take it for what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's incredible. What the last 20 minutes, got a head torch, and I went down there, and I looked in, and I just saw this massive pair of shoulders, and I thought, but there's a couple of other big commons, and it had happened to me before. You know, I was like, yeah, okay, but Tyson has got those shoulders like that, and he had the top lobe of his tail was flattened off, was damaged, and we never found out whether it was an otter or what had done that. But anyway, check the tail, and then I looked and I saw the tail, and then that was it. Just like, you just sit down on the boards and you think it's over, because it is clearly over. I'm not going back for anything. I'm not, like, that whole affair, that intensity of like the most tempestuous relationship that started off so well, and then through the middle part went so terrible, and then went up again and ended like, it was the perfect outcome to the story, because it was the final capture, and it wouldn't have felt or been the same if I caught it after 10 bites or something. It played out in terms of an experience and a story perfectly for me, for what I want out of carp fishing, and for its impact and meaningfulness to me. So it's literally just
mate, you've lived and breathed that.
Just like every moment, like, well, not every moment, because you're a family. So my family life is intensity, because I want all of those moments and the joy and the happiness. So when I come out of the fishing, I put the same amount of intensity in that into the family side of things. And then when I come back, so when you do that at a lake for that long, and you think, I'm not, when I've weighed this fish and done the pictures, I'm packing up, I'm going home. I've done one night. I'm not staying and doing a second. That's it. I'm going home. And that's kind of like, I never would ever have considered staying, but I kind of see how people get trapped into staying on lakes because they know how to catch them. They've got it totally sussed, and they can walk around and be like, oh yeah. But there comes a time to, even though you could do a second night and probably get a bite, or you could come back next week and catch a couple of bites and there'd be big fish. It's done. It's dusted. Be mad. But just go. There's other beautiful fish. There's other beautiful lakes. There's other beautiful experiences. It's time to walk away and go. And the carp gods have been kind enough to let me have the ultimate prize, and which was a UK PB. It was 54.6, and it was just like, it was amazing. And when it's time to go, and when you've got to leave, and you do feel a sorrow and a sadness, and you say goodbye to the guys, and you know, in your mind, like, you think like, oh, I hope it's Nick's turn next, or, you know, and as you're walking around the lake saying bye to everyone, and most of them didn't know, no one had known. I didn't do self takes. But a couple of mates came and helped me with the fish, but the guys who were on the lake didn't, because I was behind some reeds, they didn't know what had happened, and I don't shout when I catch a fish or anything. So, so I'm walking around saying bye to the guys, and in my heart I'm saying bye to the lake, and then I walk past a little corner swim where there's reeds, and it's a really good spot, and I'd know, the wind's coming in here tonight, right? I put a few baits down. No, what are you doing? No, it's time to go. Like, but you're programmed. Like you do a lap and you're looking for opportunity. You're thinking, no, I don't need to do that. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going home. It's the end of the story, and you're tinged with sadness. You're massively overwhelmed with adrenalized, triumphant joy. It's just, it's just a complex mix of emotions, because something that you've put so much into, you think, I might not even set foot on this lake ever again unless I come to visit someone. Yeah, exactly. This is the last view. The
100%. And then you go, as you're going out, wherever you walk out, and you go, I remember that there and that happening there, or that. Yeah. And it's weird. It's
part of your life, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Incredible fish, incredible capture. And I remember it going up on, I think you put it on your Insta, I think. And I was like, oh, mate, what an absolute. I mean, it is a solid fish. It looks like it beat the life out of you, doesn't it? Yeah. It just looks scary, man.
He's called Tyson for a reason. Yeah. But he's still round, still healthy. He's just a big shout out to Nige, actually. Nige, head bailiff, Nige Everett, just caught him last week at £59. And
£59?
Yeah. I mean, one of the best fish in the country, and big ups to Nige. He's one of the most deserving guys to. And Cabby had caught it, and Cabby had been off with health issues, and he'd come back, and brilliant angler Cabby as well. And so it's it's nice that fish goes on and formed a big part of my life for 18 months, and he's even bigger.
Ridiculous. What I also like is you did it, as you say, doing something a bit very different to what you had success on before, but very different as a whole with regards to, and we talked about the choice of stringers, the choice of sort of matching bottom baits or whatever. But I remember seeing, and it did throw me back to, I'm trying to think which episode it was, you were fishing in France somewhere on a thinking tackle, and you'd put a load of spreader boilie out, and you caught them like that when everybody else was catching them on little spots. Sky Lakes? I made that up. I remember seeing
Sky Lakes. Do you know what year that was? 2009.
Was it?
Yeah, Sky Lakes, you're right, yeah.
It feels longer than that ago.
Does it feel longer?
Yeah, it does. I don't know, mate, where this time passed. But I remember the same sort of thought process of doing something completely out the box that's different to gain better results. And it paid off then. And boy, in the end, it might have been a bit of an arduous process. But when you cracked it and you found a method and you sort of put the pieces together, mate, it resulted in the end of that, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think, I get how people want to have easy, quick solutions. I'm not, if someone wants to know what rig to use, what bait to use, how many wraps to, what swim to be in. You know, all right, that's fine. But for me, I like to bleed. I don't know why. I just like, I've said it, I am like a piscatorial masochist. And the more that a campaign or a capture takes out of me, the better it feels.
Yeah.
You know, so I want to do it my own way. I don't care what spot that or what rig or what the going bait is. I just want to do whatever it is that's diametrically opposed to what the common theme is, which is pretty much nowadays is even more straightforward because the common theme is so perpetually applied. So doing something different is actually quite easy, and there's never been a better time to do it. But I just find whatever it is I choose to do, if I just do it myself without any input, or even though obviously when I was struggling, I was asking people for like, what do you think about this? Do you think I should try zigs and so on? But when you do it your own way, there's nothing more satisfying. It's
interesting though as well that like, and fair play to you, like to not admit, because that's a very harsh term, but there's lapses in sort of confidence after you've smashed it, you've come back and you've had a lean spell, and you still bounce those ideas back. Because I think a lot of people just think people go on them and they sort of do it. They've got a fixed mindset, they're tunnel vision, and nothing can stop them. There's no doubts, and they just smash it. And every angler, I think, it's natural because you don't get exact feedback on what exactly is going on. Your brain does drift from time to time, and you do lose confidence. And I think, yeah, it's interesting to see you sort of say that you've got a sounding board, and between that, your own thoughts and what you've seen, you've sort of solved the puzzle, mate. So, yeah, I think as a whole, like you say, for you, that is a textbook perfect gold star campaign, isn't it, really? You've bled for it, you've gone through an awful lot, and ultimately you've got the prize, haven't you? It was
perfect. It was like if you had to sort of like script a fishing movie like that with some amazing bits and then a real savage bit in the middle and then finally finish. It just played out. Being a writer, like, you know, I haven't written it properly, but when I do, it'll be a joy to write because it played out so.
Yeah, when's the next book,
perfectly? Mate? Oh, it's a long way off, I think, mate. I just haven't got time, but I need to do an audio version of Rolling in the Deep. That's what I keep getting asked for, but I haven't got a studio that's soundproof.
You can get in here, boy.
I might hire this off you.
I might interrupt every now and again, but mate, crack on. I'll leave you the memory card. From that point, obviously, it's a massive like mix of emotions. It takes a long time to process. Where's your head at? Did you have a direction to go in after that? Did you have a thought process as to what to do after that?
Only insofar as it was going to be a lot more catching up on sleep and family time and other things, but I didn't have another ticket to bounce onto, and that was good, really. So I did some social fishing. I very rarely have fish socials. I've got some brilliant mates in fishing, but I just don't ever get round. So I did a bit of that winter. You know, I did some big perch fishing and just sort of loved life. You know, I love life anyway, but I just thought, do you know what? The last thing I'm going to do is throw myself into another campaign. So I just sort of fished a few different waters for different things, helped Joe with his carp angle project, get that off the ground, did some films with him. And just nothing that was too focused, but really enjoyable, whether it was quiver tipping for chub on the river or trying to catch perch on a feeder on the lake or doing a social session. It was just a nice few months until the next spring came round of just loving it.
What was the next spring, mate?
So the next spring was, so I got a ticket for a lake called the Carp Reserve in Essex, which you might have heard of. It's out, I love the name of this village that it's in. It's called Fingringhoe.
Belter, mate, that is.
Fingringhoe near Colchester, and it's a beautiful little syndicate. It's very small. It's about 3 acres, full of islands, full of weed. No monster carp by today's standards. It's never done a 40, but didn't matter to me. The fish are old and spectacular and unique and very, very special. So
what's the stock, mate, in there?
So it's 3 acres. You've got about 60 carp. You've got probably 6 of those are 30s, probably something like that. Maybe a couple more now. Biggest is a big common that goes 36, 37. You've got some to die for mirrors that go 33s, 34s, some incredible looking 20s, and it's very, probably the average depth over the whole lake is about 4 foot.
Ooh.
You've probably got about 15 islands in 3 acres. So it's like a micro rainbow.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I'd never fished a lake like that presented a whole new box of challenges. And bearing in mind, like, the amount of like different lakes that I've had to fish, I didn't think there would be a type of angling scenario which would be so different from anything I'd done, but it was. Even the types of weed that I was encountering were like nothing I'd seen on other lakes. It was all boat fishing. All the members used little inflatables and go out and find little spots. And it's in the middle of nowhere. There's not a sound. You're about half a mile from the nearest single track road, and probably 2 miles from the nearest main road. So you're out near the coast. It's just bird song and adders, and it's just lovely. And massive spiders. And do you know what? I bought because I've just been filming there this week actually. And when I came home last night, I bought my food bag in. And I went to take a couple of things out. There's massive, like, funnel web spider in. Obviously not a funnel web, but like, I haven't got time to deal with you now.
Yeah.
Zip it back up, put it in the office. I'll deal with that tomorrow.
Zipped him back up.
Well, he got a leg in the way and the zip jammed. I was like, fight with it. So, it's just like proper. Well, the reserve, it is like a nature reserve, but so I'd gone there. So this is interesting in terms of angler safety. I just want to mention this. So I'd gone there the autumn. So actually not long after catching Tyson. So probably about a month later, it was the end of November, and I got a winter ticket for this lake, and I'd gone down and I'd done a social with Joe, and thought, oh, this is quite nice. Or I visited Joe and I thought, right, I'm going to come back and have a little fish. So I came back and I thought, right, I'm going to fish it with chods from the bank, because I'm not doing what everyone's doing. Quickly realised that was futile, because it was 4 or 5 foot deep and the weed was on the surface everywhere. So you had to go out with a boat, and a lot of the weed, Hassan, was like, literally it was like a football pitch. It was just green everywhere. So you needed a boat. So I thought I can't fish it from the bank as much as I wanted to do my own thing. So I came back and I fished it with a boat the following trip, and I've used a boat on and off in my angling for 30 years, I suppose, probably, or more on and off. Anyway, so I say that just because I'm quite confident in a boat. I'm not a very good boat angler. I'm awful at actually dropping rigs accurately. I mean, if you want to see some good boat angling, like, talk to someone like Simon Scott. Like, he can just 15 foot down, drop his rig onto a spot that big with a 40-mile-an-hour wind coming across. I mean, I can't. So anyway, it's not about that. It was so I'm using the boat, and I'm confident in a boat, and I'd probably say overconfident because I'd done it for so long. But a lot of my modus operandi for boat work is stood in a boat. So I stand and I just gently, because I've got, it's like being up a tree on a bank. You just got that extra few feet of elevation. And so I was doing that, and I've got a life jacket on. It's the end of November. There's nobody on the lake, and there's not a house or a human being for probably 2 miles in every direction. I've gone to go out. I thought, right, I'm going to go out and drop a couple of rigs. And earlier in the day, I'd gone out and with my phone, and I'd done a bit of video of the weed and that and so on. And as I was about to go out, so a voice in my head said, leave your phone, throw it on the bed chair. So I took it out, threw it on the bed chair. Life jacket on, got in the boat, pushed myself out off the bank, and almost immediately, and this is in the deepest part of that, it's about 6.5, 7 foot, but solid weed. Almost immediately, I lost my balance. And it's an inflate, like Zodiac style inflatable.
Yeah.
It's very small, but that style. And it's got a wooden board seat, which is sort of runs in these sort of rubberized slots. And as I lost balance, I went to steady myself by backing my calves onto the edge of this seat just to steady myself, because I was stood in the middle of the boat. But as I rested to regain my balance on this seat. The seat started sliding, and all of a sudden I was going, and I went backwards. Well, actually, the front of the boat came up. I went in head first over the back into winter temperature water, fully clothed, boots, the whole thing. I did have a life jacket on. And I remember like this green murk down there, the shock of the water, first of all, like to anyone who's gone in cold water will know, it literally takes your breath away. And fighting the panic, because I thought, I've just done something really stupid here. In that split second or two before making my way back to the surface, I'm thinking life jacket's going to go off. It's a canister.
Oh, yeah, canister. Yeah.
So it's going to auto-inflate. I come up to the surface, gasping, trying to like get weed off my face so I can, because it's savagely weedy and I can't reach the bottom. Life jacket still hasn't gone off. And now I'm not a brilliant, I'm a good enough swimmer, but I am not a brilliant swimmer. And the weed is horrendous. Life jacket hasn't gone off and I'm in shock of what's happened. And I'm thinking, shit, this is it now. This is
serious.
This is a serious situation. So I came up sort of a bit on my back, and I knew the swim was behind me. And I thought, just power backstroke until you feel the boards between your shoulder blades. Just don't stop. Luckily I wasn't far out. I was probably 8 yards out off the bank. And I powered until I felt the boards on my back, and I got myself out of the water and took the life jacket off, like threw it in the bushes. And then just for some bizarre moment, I did a little video. You might want to use it. I'll give it to you. But with me looking like the swamp monster with weed all over my head. I'll show you the boat upside down in the lake. You can see how green the lake is. Now, couple of things. If that had happened, even 30 seconds later, I would have been 50, 60 yards out. And then the only chance I would have had would have been to try and get to an island. If I got to an island, I had no phone. I would have had hypothermia in no time. So the fact that it happened close to the bank was very fortuitous. The next thing that happened was about 15 minutes after me 10 minutes, trying to get over the stove. I'm thinking, right, I'm going to go to the van in a minute, get all my warm clothes. But I was so cold, I was going blue. Whoosh, 10, 15 minutes later, the life jacket in the bush went off.
15 minutes later.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, right, okay, go to the van, get all your spare clothes, towel, everything. Reached in my pocket. I was thrown the phone on the thing, but I'd gone out of my van key in my pocket. And where I'd gone upside down off the boat, my keys had gone out and sunk to the bottom of the lake. So now I'm thinking, right, just like it's go out there, move. So I've gone out there in just a t-shirt, soaking wet and shivering uncontrolled. I've gone out and I've got my landing net pole and I'm trying to move it's so futile. But I thought I need to find and I thought, right, while you're still cold and wet, if you feel the clunk of the pole on metal or just dive down and get them.
Never finding them, mate.
I know, but I wasn't thinking straight. I was messed up.
In shock as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So I gave up on that by the point I couldn't hold the pole anymore. Came back to the bank. I thought, well, I thought obviously I could break the van window and get my clothes, but then I thought I'm going to ring home. It's only 45 minutes from home.
Okay.
And luckily my wife and son came with all the necessaries, albeit 3 hours later, because I didn't tell her what a dire situation I was in. So she was like, oh, well, we'll come after River's done his tennis lesson and blah, blah. Anyway, so I stripped off, put the stove on, got in the sleeping bag and made it. And so she came down with spare clothes, rescued me, and she said, oh, are you coming home now? And I said, no, I'm going to stay and do the night. So I went out and dropped my rigs in the dark and stayed the night. But anyway, a very, very cautionary tale. I put it on social media, about the fact that the life jacket hadn't worked. And I took messages from 2 different people that said that they went and checked their canisters and they didn't work at all. They said, I went and put it in a bath. And like my wife was horrified, like it didn't even. So it's a cautionary. I came out of it very, very luckily. And it just shows that, even if you've used boats that long, if you're too you have to pay so much respect to situations and to boats and to water that you can't switch off for a second. You know, so it's like this, like that could have had a nasty outcome for me, as bad as it gets, if it had been a bit further out. And it's only when you sit back and you reflect on how near a miss that could be. It's like my mate Craig, right? I was telling my mate Craig about this at the weekend. He was cutting the lawn. He's the same age as me. He's been cutting the grass for years. He works for the council, and he's got a some sort of fly mower or something. He's whooshing it forward, pulling it back, doing it as quick as he could, just to get it done, because he had another job to do and he had to sort the kids out. So he's just mowing as quick as he can, doing that. And as he's come back, he's tripped over something behind him, whatever it was, and he's pulled the mower over his boot.
Jeez.
He had his steel toe caps on from his job. He showed me his boot. It doesn't even bear thinking about. And it's just another example of how your life in a split second can change beyond what you could ever have comprehended. So it was so I went away from that my first sort of forays onto the reserve, thinking, how do I catch the carp? How do I fish differently to everyone else? How do I survive generally? So I went back there in the spring with some different tactics. Oh, the other problem is it's full of silverfish.
Oh, you're joking.
Heaving with silvers. So it had various problems. But I went back and fished it in the spring with some big, heavy bottom baits and not many of them on these little spots with short links, and then managed to, in quite short order, catch all of the main big fish in probably, I was very lucky. It was in about 6 weeks or so of fishing. So it ended up like going from the nightmare start to a really nice outcome. And then from there, so that I thought, you know what, I'm going to box that off now, partly because there's a lot of other nice fish in the lake. And sometimes you like to savour relationships, you know, because if I had stayed and caught, there was a fish called the Cat Lake Common I hadn't caught, and a big fully scaled and that. And I thought, actually, if I stay now and catch them all,
it's done. Yeah.
And it's such a special place. I didn't want it to be done. So I thought, you know what, 6 weeks, beautiful spring fishing. I'm going to go somewhere else. But by this point, I had been in talks with a couple of guys about starting a new media project, and my year ahead was starting to pan out in a different direction entirely.
Media projects. Talk to me about Pennings Carp Academy, mate, I believe it's called.
It is. That was the brainchild of the conversations that I'd had with the guys that own Carpology, and I've been making some videos for them over the last few years in conjunction with sponsors, informative sort of technical type videos. And actually, it was actually quite bizarre how it came about, because when I was asked to do this sort of technical series of videos, I was full on the Tyson campaign, right? So, so I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Like, and actually, I have to be completely honest. As I always am anyway, my orders of priority, everything came after trying to catch Tyson. So I said, right, if you want to do some videos, you can come down to Grendon and I'll set up a chair and I'll just talk down camera. I'm not going to any other lake. I'm not putting out rods for doubles or 20s, or I have to be here and I have to be in the swim. And a lot of the time I won't even look down the camera because I'll be looking out there. Right. And they said, oh, right. Okay. And it was very unprofessional. We'd never done it before. So we did these series of videos, these technically vaguely informative ones, where I was sat in a chair, a bit like Vernon Coleman, if anyone knows him, old man in a chair, sat there delivering down the camera, talking about one video might have been bait or another one might have been whatever it was. And they put the films out and they got massive views.
Yeah, they did well. I remember they were really good.
Just didn't make any sense, but then when we sat back and thought about it, we thought, well, most of the content that's going out there has got, I don't watch anything, so I'm not knocking anyone's content. I literally don't watch anything. But what I'm told is a lot of them are quite brash and loud and music, and they're gimmicky, and they've got usually they will have fish, you know, they'll have the big fish, and then they'll have, and these videos didn't have any fishing, didn't have any music in, didn't have any gimmicks, didn't have anything at all. It's just me going rah, 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 in my chair. So we were like, flipping out, how's that worked? So I was thinking, oh, well, I'm quite pleased it's worked, because it's meant that I could do what I was trying to do, and we managed to do that and pull off a good job somehow. But it then got Joe and Rob at Carpology thinking, probably overestimating my appeal, and thinking, actually, maybe we should do some more videos. And then we started thinking about, my wife was talking to me about doing some sort of learning-based academy. She's got her own beauty business, and she's went into it, training and academy and that sort of thing. And when we were talking about putting something together, it was certainly in recognition of the fact that you've got various channels out there doing it. And they're all mates of mine. They're all people that I've known for years, and they do a brilliant job. And I thought, well, I'm not going to compete with them. I'm not going to go in and do that. Much as I have to say, probably my natural, if I had a choice, if I was going to do carp films, I'd want to be doing big carp films, like the sort of fishing that I do. Yeah. But I thought, well, that marketplace is oversaturated. Not over, it's full. And then one way or another, through my wife and conversation with Rob and Joe, we thought, look, nobody is doing an out-and-out instructional, educational vehicle or platform which is not focused on entertainment, is focused just on getting more carp in landing nets through good, easy-to-digest information. So that was the premise for Carp Academy. And even now, you know, we're sort of 7 months in now, and someone said to me, like, recently, you know, there's a lot of channels out there, money's tight, I don't really know, what should I buy? And that's how I separate. I say, if you want beautifully filmed, aspirational entertainment, then those guys are brilliant. You know, they're ahead of the game. There's some great content out there. But if you want educational content to improve your angling, then it's Carp Academy. We're the only people that do it. We found a niche, and we put together a library of. So, say for example, you went onto one of the channels, one of the other guys that are doing it, and you thought, right, I want to find how to learn about solid bag fishing. There's so much material there of session fishing and anglers' names, how you would even. So we thought, well, let's put everything into a well collated, easy to decipher library with clear headings, like we call them success packs. So it's like a film, it's called a success pack on watercraft or on feature finding, on how to find spots in weed, or how to reduce hook pulls on barbless hooks, or how to, and so on and so on. And make a library. So there was all of that content as thumbnails that you can index very easily and improve your angling on. And then on the other side of the offering, we've got our content drops, which we do every Friday, like most of the channels. You know, we drop content every week, and we'll do an in-session film, and then the second Friday of the month I do a technical film, which usually is about what we did in the in-session film.
Right.
Third Friday of the month I do my video log, which I'm just filming my own raw stuff when I'm doing my own fishing. And the last Friday of the month I do a Zoom conference members Q&A. Like, we all grab a beer Friday night, let's sit down and ask whatever you want. So that was how we thought we'd do it. And again, like the whole way of packaging it was all about, the other guys do steaming kettles, misty mornings, big black mirrors, and sort of stuff that you and I might watch with a glass of wine on a Sunday night and think, oh, that's brilliant. We're going to be the guys that, I think we still haven't filmed a kettle coming to the ball 7 months in. It's about helping people catch more carp. Like, if you want pure, we'll try and be entertaining, but that is not on our list of priorities. It's about getting easy to digest information through, based largely on me doing tutorials with what would now be into the thousands of people, or certainly over 1,000 people over more than 10 years of doing it. What I've learned during that of how to communicate helpful educational points to anglers that come to me with problems, what I've learned doing that, how to deliver it and how to problem solve and get that across to people, and putting that into a platform where the viewer kind of gets like almost through the screen, like almost like a one-to-one tuition with me through a video form. So that was what we set out to do. And I mean, we launched in November last year. So it's May now. So yeah, 7 months. And it's been really positive. And I think partly because obviously it focuses on a niche that at the moment is largely neglected, and anglers want information. And a lot of the thing is that there's two things going on. You've got, certainly there's one element that out there at the moment, there's too much information. Right? A lot of people who come to me on a client basis, their problems, either self-diagnosed or I can see it, is that they don't know whether they're coming or going because of the oversaturation of information. Information's brilliant, but now there is so much of it that if you're new to carp fishing, and we're focusing mostly on those people, it's almost impossible it is impossible to decipher what's going on and what you need to do. And most people don't have a clue. They have buckets of like this tall with pots of hook baits. So Carp Academy is about trying to break it down into simplistic, manageable methodology that makes sense, that is common sense, that is logical, that is easy to understand, and helping people to apply those methods and catch more carp. And part of that's through the Library of Success Pack films, and part of it is through filmed projects of me going out and proving that you can go out with a rig that's made of two components, like we were talking about earlier, and do really well on. So that's been that's the nuts and bolts of what Carp Academy is, and of course that's taken a lot more of my time.
For you, I mean, obviously Joe, Rob, I've got the utmost respect for those guys. If it weren't for Joe, I probably wouldn't be here. So unbelievable pedigree in terms of digital stuff, but also just business carpology, an incredible success story.
Yeah.
You as an angler, I remember seeing two things when that came live. First off, I was like, fair play, he's done it. It's going to be that whole inspirational big carp stuff, because that is where I would pigeonhole your angling. Then when I saw not only is it your name, but it was also that sort of very much entry level, for not trying to disrespect it, but for that term of sort of educational content, if you like.
Yeah, Word Academy.
Yeah, I was a bit like, right, okay, would you be happy doing that? Like, it's maybe sacrificing your fishing, which is a completely different end of the spectrum, for that? Is that something that is, I don't know, gonna work for you long term?
It's got longevity.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a really good question. I think because I've done it for so many years now, I've done it principally because I've enjoyed it. It's I love working with anglers and trying to problem solve. And I think if you have this mindset, so my mindset is, and I'm just about, well, I've been doing it like for way too long, but I still learn stuff because I'm open-minded. I'll go out with anglers. Sometimes they're clients. I think, oh, that's quite neat the way you do that. And if you're open-minded, there's always stuff to learn. The problem anglers, the anglers that have this sort of closed off sort of, well, I've been doing it for years, what could he teach me? Then you get, if you've got that attitude, then you'll never learn because you're clearly not open to learning, and they just sort of plateau off or even decline. But if you've got an open, inquiring mind, then, and there's a lot of anglers out there who still in touch, who become firm friends that and that are still in touch, that I still see, and I feel like although they're mates as well, it's a very, to answer your question about longevity, I find it very fulfilling. I think whether it probably, if I was it could be, you know, maybe if I was like working in a school or something, it'd be, you know, if you was help if I can help. So I'm not an altruist or anything like that, but it's very I thrive on positive energy. So if you can help people do something and achieve their first 20 or their first 30 or a set of memories that they might still cherish when they're 85, then that's worthwhile. And if I can do that and help to pay my mortgage, then wonderful. And in terms of longevity, yeah, I can. I'm really enthusiastic for it, and I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to do it for at least another year, and then we'll sell it off and franchise it. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, there it is. There's the plan. Then I'll sit back and
I'm
go on big
joking.
carp
I'm
missions.
joking.
Forget the beginners. I'm all about the elite. Come on. The sort of information, if people want to get hold of that, is it just all online? Is it its own platform?
So we've got our own platform, www.penningscarpacademy.com. We will, by the time this goes out, have a dedicated YouTube channel with lots of free content on it as well, so people can try before they buy, sort of thing. We've got very active social media channels, obviously particularly on Instagram, Facebook, and so on. But that's all, under Pennings Carp Academy.
Busy, mate. Busy,
does keep
man.
you busy, yeah. Especially like I've just had to add a month off because I injured myself and I couldn't go fishing or do anything for a month. So suddenly you're in a situation where you think, well, I've got these members, I've got to go out and do a live, which I was planning on going to Linear and doing a live in session. And suddenly I thought, I can't do it. And there's only me. So then I had to come up with a plan B, which would just film in my office and do like a slideshow. But again, like all of our content, it has to be based around an information exchange where people can watch it and not. So some people might watch a film and their key thing that they're looking to take from it is probably first entertainment and stroke viewing pleasure, and second is maybe get some inspiration, aspiration out of it. With Carp Academy, I like to think that whatever we put out, their takeaways are going to help them catch more carp. That's it. I want the members and it's like the feedback is phenomenal that people can take these simple, logical. That's another thing. It's like if you know, if like someone tells you something, whatever it is, maybe if you had a coach in tennis who wasn't quite as good as your really good coach and he was trying to get you to, and you're thinking that doesn't really seem quite the one. And you get the same information in fishing. But if someone tells you something and it's simple and it's logical and it makes sense, then you go and do it and you apply it because it makes sense to you. So I always try and get things across, whether it's bait application or a rig or whatever it is. You just have to explain it in a way that people just think, oh, well, yeah, why wouldn't that work like that?
Yeah,
rather than trying to,
isn't it? I'm trying to think like an example of like when you go on and you use the power of YouTube for like an instruction to, I don't know, fit a washing machine, fold up a tent or whatever.
Yeah, or play a guitar or...
I had one of the girls' little princess tents I had to fold down. It was like you needed a degree, mate. It was ridiculous. Straight on YouTube. Yeah. And there was some American sort of Midwest mom just going, bish, bosh, bang, done. I was like, I'm a numpty. But it was like clear, concise. And you were like, oh, you muppet. Yeah. And I did it in a couple of seconds, pretend I never saw it, and I was a hero. But anyway, glossing over that. But I get what you mean. That sort of... At the moment, if you do that, you get an absolute bombardment of different sorts, and you're sort of very much focusing on the purity of that information and keeping it in that regard, aren't you?
I'm trying to unclutter cluttered minds, because the people, the anglers out there that are new to the sport or learning or have been doing it 4 or 5 years, social media and video, that's how they're getting their information. But once you start dipping a toe into that, unless you've got a multi-gigabyte brain capacity, it's just like...
Yeah, too much.
It's too much. Yeah. So it's streamlining, simplifying, decluttering, and proving that it works. That's the important part. It's all very well me saying it, but I have to go out and say, right, this is what we talked about, this is what we've done. Let's put it into action, and let's put it into action on not always. Well, we have fished some testing waters actually, but put it into action on waters which people can relate to. So I'm not going to go and do it at the Woolpack or I'm taking the Woolpack, you know what I mean, or up at Grendon, because most people aren't ever doing that sort of fishing. But what I will do is go and do it at Linear or at Bluebell or at Stannick Lakes or wherever, because that's where the main core demographic of the people I'm trying to reach to are fishing either busy club waters or busy day tickets. So that's where we have to make our films.
Yeah, no, I like that.
But I love that as well.
Well, this is well, it segues lovely. It's like we've planned it into bluebells. Now, I've seen an incredible amount of incredible fish from you at Bluebells. It's a mega complex, a complex I'm familiar with, but a complex that is very different. Maybe not in the fish, because those kingy commons, the fish from Swan, even the fish from San Martin are incredible, and Mallard, but the actual crux of that day ticket, busy, hustle, bustle, in and out of swims, buckets behind buckets, that I wouldn't necessarily see as something that you would thrive or enjoy. But you've been there, you've had success, and you've just said there that you absolutely love it. Talk to me about the Bluebell chapter.
So I've always done, when I sort of lived in Oxford through the mid-90s to the early 2000s, and a lot of my, although I was fishing off the track, monster hunting on different lakes, a lot of my main fishing was on linear. Funny enough, actually, we were talking about this yesterday when we were filming, and the guy said to me he caught this fish out of St John's called Starburst, which you might remember.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, yeah. And his memory came back. I said, do you know how big I caught Starburst when it was 19 pounds and 15 ounces, and it wasn't quite St John's first 20. So it was a long time ago. In those lakes then, you still had bucket behind bucket. You still had people queuing. Manor.
Did you?
Manor in the late 90s was the number one circuit water in the country. It had 14 30-pounders in it, which was unprecedented for a day ticket water. That was, so you had everyone from Terry Earn to Frank Warwick to Laney. Everyone went there, and it was, you know, Manor's not a massive lake. And that was the day ticket, Wembley, if you like, for 30-pounders then, and maybe a chance of a 40 if Popeye or Cuttail were over 40. So, and they were the waters that I was fishing then. So really busy, competitive, and I've been back to linear loads of times. And so that whole, it doesn't really faze me. You just make a mental adjustment. And I quite like the element of, I suppose, competitiveness. Like when you are fishing up against other anglers, you can sort of measure how effective what you are doing or what you're not doing is working. So I do, that sort of thing does give me a buzz. So going up to Bluebell didn't faze me. It was just kind of back to what I'd been used to doing. So we went down there. I did a couple of trips down to Swan, and I had not been to Bluebell or fished it. I'd been there for something work related about 10 years earlier, but I hadn't fished it or done anything. So it was all new to me. So it was really exciting. And like you said, the fish are
incredible. Yeah.
Incredible. So I was very excited. So I went up and I did a couple of sessions on Swan, found it very difficult. You know, it's like until you get that first bite on a lake, you don't quite know how you're going to fish it. And I thought, well, everyone's using bait boats, so I'm going to go up there and fish the long links and the stringers. And so I did that, and I did it on fish, and then I wound in a couple of times when the rigs were all twisted and spun up where the fish had got rid of them. And so I thought, yeah, this is going to be interesting. And so in the process of doing that, we've also chronologically come to a point where we need to start filming content for Carp Academy, because we're thinking, at that point, I think we were thinking we might launch late summer, August, September. Right. As it is always with those things, it ended up being November. But so we thought we'll start filming some stuff and building the library, do some success packs and do some session films. And so for the first sort of inaugural Carp Academy in session, I thought, right, what we're going to do is go to Bluebell and get on the gate on a Monday morning at 7 a.m. with everybody else and see what happens. Which was one of those like moves that could like just massively go wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to catch them. I didn't know where I was going to catch them from. I didn't know what lake we'd be on. But I thought, let's put it on the line, because this is what most people are faced with.
Yeah, that's reality.
Yeah. No favours, no roped off rubbish, which I wouldn't do anyway. No pre-baited, no bollocks. Just go there and do it with everybody else. So, and that's remained the premise for everything that we filmed. So we went up there, got on the gate, so I'm thinking, right, okay, let's start off, make sure I've got some good walking boots on and some Polaroids, and off we go. So I dragged my poor cameraman Ian round, like, what must have amounted to miles, and we nearly fished on mallard, and then we nearly fished on kingfisher, and we had a look at swan, and we had a little look at bluebell, which is, as you probably know, is well more densely stocked, and it's a smaller lake. And I thought there was an opportunity to get on fish there, but being a smaller lake and well stocked, I thought actually that would make a brilliant film for a winter venue. And I thought, no, don't keep your powder dry on that. So we carried on walking, and anyway, after literally, was it 6 or 7 hours? So I say 6 hours of walking the complex, looking, and there's people everywhere, as you know. It's
it's constant.
It's constant. People arriving, a few people leaving, people arriving all the time, and bivvies, like 2-man bivvies and a cooking tent and a toilet tent in every sort of, all the way around. And eventually, as we stopped and looked at a corner of sand martin, and there was a load of weed. And as I've walked in, it was like there was a set of rings were just dissipating, and I thought, it's probably a coot's gone over. And I stood there looking, and nothing come up. And then 2 bubbles come up. So I thought, right, so that all I'm looking for is something that's going to make me put down roots and say, right, I'm going to invest 30 minutes stood here still, like, just watch. So I did that, and after about 10 minutes, like, silently, I was like, bloody hell. I'm stood in an empty swim. There's a carp in front of it. It's rolled twice, or one of it, and there's a couple of bubbles come out. Stand there for a bit longer. Saw another one. Right.
Which corner's this, mate? On the roadside between Mallard and that? Or
so it's on the roadside between. It's on the roadside between the river.
Yeah.
And San Martin's.
Yeah.
I think this is called the mounds or the humps or something.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So if you was in the swim, the shop and complex would be down to your extreme left, and the entrance to the fishery would be over in the distance ahead of you.
Yeah,
Swan would be to the right. And so I thought, we got something here we can work with now. All I'm looking for is an opportunity where I can move on to fish. And went and got the gear, and just thought, well, do you know what? All I'm going to do, and it was another one that was quite interesting. I thought, do you know what? At Bluebell, you've got a lot of bait boat users, and a lot of those bait boats, I mean, it blows my mind. They're those RT4s,
yeah,
like with winches that wind a camera down to the bottom, and I'm thinking, my God, I get in a mess with that shit. It's just beyond my comprehension. I thought, right, so a lot of the fishing's like that, or it's people turning up and fishing long sessions. Like they do a good deal for week-long sessions and that. So a lot of people are there for a long time. So you get bait boat fishing and or heavy baiting with spoms, loads of it. So I thought, right, all we're going to do is we're going to get on some fish. I didn't know whether the fish were going to eat boilies. I didn't know what lake we were going to be on. I didn't know whether they would eat boilies or whether they want hemp and pellet or whatever. So I've got everything in the van in case I need it. But what I really wanted to do was just fish boilies and use a catapult. Like the antidote to the RT4. Right?
Yeah.
As far as you could get. So I've got in a swim. I thought, right, I'm just going to go straight in with boilies, and I'm going to bait lightly, and I'm going to fish bottom baits and find, this is very weedy. And so I went about doing that, and they were clearly fishing the area, and they stayed in the area. And I'm thinking, right, we've got 2 nights. I spent most of the first day walking and looking and then fanning around. But I've got a couple of rods sorted just on the perimeter of this very thick weed band, and I catapulted some krill boilies in a line around there, and I've got 2 bottom baits, and I'm happy. And I use you'll probably remember there used to be a project or a shop. It wasn't a shop, it was like something you would order from, called Angler's Workshop, and they made these boilie missiles, like a pencil, really thin with veins on the end, and they were big in the 80s and the 90s. And I still got my original one, and So I thought, well, if I want to like dot any boilies, I just put 3 in, fill it up with water, and it lands silent. Even had someone come down like, what sort of spom are you using, mate? But it's just it was just a really nice, other than the initial leading up with a 2-ounce lead on braid just to find the perimeters of the jungle.
How much leading up did it take?
In there quite a lot.
Right.
Because it was very, very, very weedy. But the thing that I've always found is that the more weed there is, the more they'll tolerate you leading around because they just melt into the weed.
Yeah, sit in it. Yeah.
When there's no weed, they can be flighty. But if there's no weed, you don't need to do loads of leading up. So, luckily. So, they melted into the weed and they stopped showing for a bit. But I'm quite careful with how you do it. With a 2-ounce lead, you stop it properly and it goes in with a tiny little plop. I'm only casting it 30 yards out, fill it down, pull it along, so on. So I did that and for probably an hour and a half or however long it was until I found what I was happy with, which was just a very, very rock hard, clean bit of very fine shingle and sand. Small for each rod, probably a couple of foot square for each rod. But around it was dissipating into still fishable ground, sort of clean silt and so on. So then once I got the rigs on the spot, I put 3 or 4 baits on there, but I spread them around a little bit. And I also made a point of giving them some food in the weed where they were breaching, because a lot of it was like tall eelgrass, and I knew the boilies would drop straight down to the bottom. And as you know, the more of your bait they're eating and not having a bad experience, then the better the end. So I did that. And anyway, the next morning, I caught 2, which was like, I thought from the outset, I thought, right, this is our first ever Carp Academy film. If I can go somewhere I've never been and put it all on the line and come away with a fish, we've got a program.
Yeah, we've got something.
And if I get 2, I've had a major result. So we caught 2 and I couldn't believe it. And they're beautiful. The first one was this amazing common Hassan. It was about, I can't remember if I might not have weighed it. It was about 17 pound, I think, but what a carp. What a carp that was.
Jet black. They're mega, aren't they?
Yeah, they're proper mega, those fish. And then, so we caught these 2 carp. They were both nice. And then it ended, I think I caught another one about the middle of the day. It was going well. Anyway.
Same spot, these 2 spots.
Yeah, same spots, yeah. Which were only about 2 rod lengths apart. And going into the evening, I'm getting everything sorted for the second and final night. And let me remember exactly now. By this point, I've been catapulting boilies fairly regularly, but like literally 1 or 2 baits every 20 minutes throughout the day. So plop every now and again, boilie falling through the water. They love, it ain't going to scare them. It's the gradual application of bait match angler style is a very underused weapon. And I'm seeing more and more bits of fizz come up around the swim, and it's looking good, and a few fish rolling. And anyway, just on dusk, like literally 20 minutes before it was due to get dark, I had a bite on the rod that had done, I think I'd had 3, and it was the rod that had done 2 of those 3. And it was seriously heavy. I was like, this must be in weed, but it was moving around. I managed to get it through the weed, because there was a bit of a barrier of weed I was fishing over, and I managed to get it through there, and then it's chugging around underneath her. I'm thinking, this is like, the way it's moving, it's not covered in weed, but it feels like it's covered in loads of weed, right? And anyway, I've netted this fish just as the light's going, and I've looked down in the net, and I was like, that's massive. That ain't just big, that's massive. Anyway, long story short, it was a fish called Tilly, which is the biggest fish in the lake, and is one of the most coveted on the complex. And
yeah,
I couldn't believe it. They had spawned. This was July, and they had spawned. So we weighed it, and I think it was 46 pound 4 ounces.
It's normally a 50, isn't it?
Yeah. But to catch, like, so I had to say to the Carp Academy viewers, like, we're not about big fish on here, and like like we're just going to show you how to catch a couple of 20s, but like if we get a monster come along, we ain't shaking it off. And I said, like, we've got something, like, it was like catching lightning in a bottle to get a fish like that. I mean, so San Martin is about, I don't know, 6 acres or
five,
down to 25 foot deep.
It is deep, yeah.
250 fish in it. right? So the odds of and typically Tilly's about 2, maybe 3 times a year with ridiculous pressure around the lake. Insane pressure.
Yeah, it's constant.
So it doesn't get caught loads. So when you think of it like that, it was my 4th fish. And at that point, I'd only done 1 night. Then you couldn't calculate. My head was blown with calculating the probability statistic. It was just like so lucky. It was insane. But we'll take that bit of luck. It was like, so we got this incredible thing out. Did some Ian done some really good night shots of it. It was dark by then. It was obviously about 9:30 in the evening by then. And I think I got another one after that the next morning. I think we came away with 5 fish from 2 nights anyway.
Epic,
but
yeah.
All just fishing bottom baits and using a catapult and using the boilie pencil a little bit. And it was just one of those, you've done loads of filming, like whenever someone goes fishing and catches carp for the camera, I have loads of respect for them, whoever they are, because as soon as you introduce cameras into the equation, it becomes a lot harder sometimes for reasons that you can't even discern or fathom. It's like some sort of ethereal energy changes sometimes. So I was acutely aware that we'd come away with catching lightning in a bottle, really biggest fish in the lake, and to get 5 and everything. And we were so disproportionately lucky, and that ended up being our inaugural first in-session film. But it gets even more crazy than that. Just infinitesimally, incalculably ridiculous. So after that, I went and did a bit more. I filmed a few more success packs for the platform and did another in-session at Suffolk Water Park. And in between, I was doing a little bit more because I didn't have a ticket, as I said to you earlier, for anywhere. So I was quite like Bluebell, and I went back and I carried on fishing swan.
How'd you get on there?
Once I figured out how to catch them, all right, I ended up with quite a few. Up to the biggest that I caught was one of the known 40s, but it was I think it was 38-14. Really nice, really cool mirror. I caught it at night. Sadly, it was one of those fish. It was very pale and quite leathery, and but if you took that carp and said it, and I don't say this lightly, if you said that carp had lived in Yateley Car Park like 25 years ago, you'd believe it. It's the same shape head. It's a really, really cool carp. I don't know. It probably has got a name because it's one of the known 40s. But that and a few other nice ones. So yeah, that came together. So I did a bit more fishing on swan. I caught a nice one off the top. And
what was the way to catch them, mate? You said you figured out the way to catch them.
Well, I'm still fishing on there at the moment. So
don't blow it. Subscribe to Pennings Carp Academy.
No, it's basically no, I'm only joking about that. All it was ditching all of the bits and pieces and just fishing straight boilies, but fishing it with the boilie rocket. So finding a spot that was clean where I'd seen fish, clipping it up, putting a rig there with a stringer, and then but with not with an 18-inch link, with a more normal length link, dropping down hook sizes markedly. And
dropping down hook sizes?
Yeah, that's a massive part of the deal these days. Everyone's on size 4s and 2s with their Ronnies, mate. I promise you. Anyway, don't want to get too much into that at this point, but and then baiting it. Baiting it with the boilie rocket, like 3 casts, each one with 3 boilies in it. So like 9 baits. And it just gave them something they had not seen before.
Yeah, it's completely different.
And it was virtually silent. If it was closer range, I'd do it with a catapult. But I was fishing quite often on tiny little patches of clay and shingle that did require quite finite fishing. So, but the funny part of the story was I went back onto San Martin at the end of August. I hadn't fished it since since the film with Tilly.
Yeah.
And so I went back on there, and I wanted to get on swan. It was one of those trips where literally I think there was 2 empty swims on the complex.
Yeah.
One of them was in the corner of San Martin. So I thought, right, I didn't want to drive. It's a long drive for me. I thought I don't want to go home. So I'd seen the odd little bubble in this corner on San Martin, and I thought I might be tench, but I'm going to fish it. It was quiet corner despite the mayhem going on everywhere else. So I thought, okay. And I hate not setting up with a certainty that I'm on fish. Catching them is one thing, but if I don't know they're in the swim, then I won't normally even fish there. But it was literally that will go home. So I set up, fished the night, no carp showed. And the next morning, I caught a little tiny 4 pound tench. 2 pound. It was tiny, maybe 1 pound tench, but anyway. And I thought that was what was doing that bubbling and giving me the tiny little knocks on the line and so on. So, but anyway, I noticed a swim becoming free opposite. So I thought I'm just going to have a walk round. So I walked round, and as I walked round, I've seen this carp come through close through the weed. I thought, oh, flipping hell. So I quickly dropped down my bucket and I carried on watching. And then there was a bit of fizz. Right, this is game on now. There's carp in the swim. So I went and got my packed up, moved around, got in there, and I spent the day feeding this little patch, which was just off the weed where I'd seen them fizzing a little bit, just by hand. It was that close, throwing a boilie, and leaving it. And I didn't fish all day. And Trev the bailiff come round, we're having a cup of tea, and I was so obsessed with putting in boilies every now and again. During our chat, I'll go, hang on, Trev, I've just got to go, and I'll go down and throw in another 6 boilies, and the bubbles will keep coming up. And so it's a kind of one of the main tactics in my angling approach is what I call free safe food, which is just feeding them with no pressure, no danger. And it's something I use in France, and it's a whole other subject, but it's a major weapon on really, really busy lakes. They never get just food, and not a lead, not a line, nothing. I do it loads. I did it this week when I was filming, and it's a serious part of my approach. Anyway, so I thought I'm just going to feed them all day like that. And as the day's going on, there's more and more fears, and a couple, and me and Travis, another one's put his head out like 10 foot from the bank. And I was tempted to have a go. I thought, no, I'm just going to keep feeding them. So I kept feeding them. Anyway, that evening, I got the rod sorted, obviously put one on that spot, put one in deeper water off to the left, and a few carp were sloshing around. There were still bubbles coming up, and I went to bed feeling very confident. And just on first light, that rod did a bite. And as I'm playing it, I'm thinking, this is flipping heavy. It's either covered in weed, or it's like one of the really big ones that live in here. And just as the mist was clear, it was epic. It was flat calm. It was misty. Just one, and I've netted this head just come. I've looked in the net, and it's Tilly.
She loves you, doesn't she?
Like, what the hell? How do you even compute that? So, my only two regrets is a ridiculous word for such a thing, but my only two reservations from the first capture was one, that I only got night shots, and two, that she weren't a 50-pounder. But I was not bothered in the least. So this time, even by the end of August, she's put on 4 and a bit pounds. She's gone over 50 pounds. No one had caught her since I caught her. Now she's over 50 pounds, and I can do some self-takes in the daylight. So I've got this mahogany 50-pound carp, arguably the best on the complex, against insane odds. How do you? That's down to the carp gods. Like, some people.
Do you think?
100%.
Sort of spiritual.
100%.
You don't think it's because of that tactical that she's come out twice on that type of.
I caught the twice I caught her were on 2 different baits. First time was on krill, second was on Manila.
Oh, okay.
2 different rigs, 2 different spots, different parts of the lake, different swims. Everything was different. Even the type of hook, everything was different. So when people like my good mate Archie, who fishes at Bluebell, and him and one or two others have said, "Oh, brilliant bit of angling, mate," I say, you have to angle well to get a bite. What is on the end is down to the carp gods. Like 250 fish, and that's then my 6th carp out of there. That is down to some weird thing beyond our comprehension, that is even beyond what you would call luck. I don't even understand it. It made my head go a bit spinny trying to. Whoa! It's like
to fathom it. Yeah, you can't, can you?
Infinitesimal odds. So, yes, that was quite a bizarre thing. So, it was quite strange, because for me, like when I'm campaign fishing, where I might be chasing a 50, but it was the first year I hadn't been doing I didn't have a ticket, and I'd still managed to catch a 50 pound. I was thinking, flipping hell, from a day ticket lake, like. but then I'll tell you another story from later on, and it ended up being a really good big fish year when I didn't have any tickets. It was just a really strange year last year. But yeah, that thing with Tilly's a very, very special carp. I just want to put this out there. I know this is like a little bit contentious for some people, and it's an endless debate that people have. But if there's any fishery owners listening to this, or people that have got a fishery and they're not quite sure what to do, or if you're an angler and you've got influence at club level, what I can tell you is this, and it doesn't matter what your view, because the Bluebell blueprint proves it beyond doubt. 5 lakes that have been under relentless pressure since the 90s. Fish from doubles up to 60 pound. Loads of weed, loads of snags, and all of them are immaculate. Why? Barbless hooks. It kills any argument stone dead. Some of the fish you catch look like they've never been caught before. And I tell you what, Hassan, from the times that I've been up there now, it is beyond doubt in my mind. You can say, oh, ban leg claw or ban this or ban that. The biggest enemy to the welfare of a carp on pressure commercial lakes where they're under constant pressure is a barb. And there is no argument that could cancel out the Bluebell blueprint. 30 years of being a premier, super high pressure day ticket complex with all comers, with all sizes of fish, with every kind of terrain you could imagine, and they're all amazing.
But then, and I'm not going to name them, but there are other complexes you can go to which have had barbless hook rules, and you think there's other factors that sort of can potentially cause the damage that you sometimes see on a lot of those fish.
Well, if there are other factors that are causing damage on those lakes, they haven't manifested at Bluebell. No. And the reason is, the key principle is, by having a barbless policy, you eliminate 99% of all tethering and towing.
Yeah, tethering, yeah, definitely.
It's gone. Because as you know, when you catch a fish on a barbless rig and you leave it in the net while you sort your camera out,
gone, yeah.
It's gone. You've eliminated all tethering and towing virtually. And as I said, you've got 5 different lakes there, and you've got 30 years of history.
Yeah, it's a good test sample, isn't it?
There isn't. You could, even if someone said, yeah, but the club lake down the road from me, it's terrible, and it's been that doesn't cancel out the Bluebell blueprint. It's just another reason that's caused that, because Bluebell has been exposed to every type of angling that you could ever imagine, from every angler, from someone that started last week through to Martin Locke. They've all been there. Everyone's fished it. Fish are amazing.
For you on there, day tickets, that whole scene coming back into it now, have you noticed any changes sort of from not being in and around busy complexes, sort of modern day to now? Is the standard of angling generally of a higher level maybe than when I thought, or not? That's
a great question, because the technical ability and armory, the armory of when I say the average angler, I don't mean in a derogatory term, I mean of if you call them the main populace, the armory has expanded exponentially. The technical ability and insight of those anglers has expanded exponentially. Are they better anglers? A lot of the time if you look at, so just take one facet of what it takes to be a good angler. If you look at Bluebell, you've got a lot of long stay anglers. Now, if you turn up at Bluebell and you're basing your obviously the swim you choose, where you choose from the outset, for most people, that's where they're staying, right? Now, the odds of you getting your best choice of swim at the first time of asking, very, very slim, right? So most anglers, they've got these 2-man bivvies, then the cook tent, then the toilet tent, right? Whatever swim they go into, they're not moving out of, right? So then the key determining factor to success is overridden or denied, or it's removed. Because even if, like, obviously there are a lot of good anglers on there who will, the next morning, because the thing to remember is that if you've got a really busy complex, that doesn't mean that is an incessant promenade of anglers, of procession of anglers, I should say, arriving. You can't just have people. It means there's people coming and going all the time.
Yeah.
So there were always opportunities, and exactly the situation I just said with Tilly. The first night I couldn't get near him, but I moved and got, and on the second night it happened. So, but a lot of people put themselves out of the game by completely removing all flexibility from their angling through the amount of stuff they take. And you can just see like the size of the average bivvy now is so much bigger than it used to be, because people like bigger bed. And I know why people like big bed chairs. It's nice to be comfortable, but if it gets to a point where the amount of gear you've got prevents you making decisions that you know you should be making, then you're not a good angler, in my opinion. Or it's probably a bit harsh. No, it's not harsh. That's how it is. Sorry.
Yeah.
So people's technical ability has got loads better. And their access to things that will work has expanded. Great baits, great additives, all sorts of things. And there are loads of brilliant anglers out there. There's anglers out there that you all know personally and I know personally that are loads better, certainly, than myself, and loads better than a lot of people that are in the public eye that most people would never have heard of.
100%.
And they just go, and they're phenomenal. And there's loads of those, and I have loads of respect for those. And they're the people that, if you go to somewhere like Bluebell or any other really busy complex, they will always find a way to apply their trade and make it work. But it's an interesting. So, what is the actual answer to that? Have anglers got better or worse?
I think it's become very different. Even the time that I've seen it, the basic sort of skills of sort of stealth, not appearing on skylines, the sort of things you did when you were, you learnt when you were a kid, when you were on those complexes. I think they've disappeared.
That's
to some
all missing,
extent.
definitely.
But I think, my God, when you were a kid and you were putting out a bag of spanners and you were getting absolutely turned over and catching nothing.
Yeah.
Now that whole preamble's probably gone completely. It's just getting to a sim, clack your bivvy mallets and craziness. Yeah. But what you put on the end is a lot more sophisticated than probably a lot of anglers put out now. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think from what I've seen, there's been that change. But I think overall it's very hard to say where that. Also, the fishing's probably got harder because it's had more pressure for more period of time, hasn't it?
Carp fishing got harder.
Granite, yeah.
I mean, that's like, Daryl Peck was my gym partner till I moved away for years and years, and he said to me a long time ago, "It's getting hard, isn't it?" That's Daryl Peck. And carp fishing continues to get harder. And well, what's the reason? The reason is that carp don't like getting caught, so they will do their best to avoid getting caught. So it's a constantly moving object, isn't it? You've got to adjust and recalibrate, reappraise, and try and stay ahead of the game, because the more carp that get caught, the less carp get caught because they don't like getting caught. So you get peaks and troughs in the effectiveness of a presentation or something, and suddenly, boom, people catch loads of fish and then come down the other side, stops working, people are looking for the next thing, or maybe not looking for the next thing, maybe just keep reapplying the thing that used to work, and even willfully aware of their deteriorating results. Yeah. And they might put it down to, well, I can only do one night now when I used to do two, or maybe my bait company's changed one ad, and they'll blame everything except for anglers lack key personal accountability. Right? If you don't catch on a session, of course there's times where the fish aren't feeding a lot of times, and carp fishing has got harder, but anglers are very, very slow to place any personal accountability on themselves for failure. It's always, I should have been on that rig, or maybe I should have tried the Scopex squid, or what, there's always something. It's never actually, do you know what, I messed up and I went in the wrong swim and I saw them showing over there and I should have moved. They won't admit that to themselves, they'll just blame other factors. Yeah.
It's a hard admission, isn't it? For you, and this is probably a little bit of a delve into the dark side, and I don't like to do it, but in terms of the whole, and we're talking about this sort of over a period of time, the whole, not etiquette, but just the whole sort of way people conduct themselves on those complexes is very busy. Have you seen generally sort of it being harmonious? Have you seen any instances that have really wound you up? Because you ain't shy of an opinion either, are you, mate, with regards to stuff? Like nobody is who's been in carp fishing for that long.
I think, the etiquette thing is... Actually, firstly, I would say that certainly at Bluebell, it's run so well that you don't really. The only conflict you really ever find with anglers is people sending bait boats across too far and going out of their water. You know, which is you do see. Unfortunately, you do see a lot of that on there. But I think certain little things do niggle. Like there's been times there and on another lake that I could name where people are sleeping in vans, and I've got nothing against sleeping in a van, but you can't sleep for a run. You know, a couple of occasions you just hear the alarm going. One guy, I went round and I walked past his van the next day and the sliding doors open. I looked in there and it was like, it made me feel sleepy. Just I thought, oh, it looks lovely in there. Like the whole thing was the biggest, thickest camo quilt and double bed. And I thought, do you know what? If you really want to sleep that well, stay in a hotel or something, you know, because if you're sleeping that well that you can't even get up for a run. So, you know, if you could potentially compromise another angler or a carp by a carp going with your rig down through the next peg and everything else, then that's not really on. And of course, there's a whole film. We probably all done it. I can remember filming a bite and put it on my media probably about 5 or 6 years ago, probably. I was probably a trendsetter then, wasn't I?
Yes, mate. Ahead of your time.
But that was in a situation where I knew there was no weed or snags or anything, and I did it for like 2 or 3 seconds just because I'd never filmed one before or something. I had a new phone, I don't know. But there is an oversaturation of people doing it now where you can clearly see like the line like going through pads or just like, or the clutch is so loose. I mean, I don't know how they must be lifting into these fish eventually and they're just falling off anyway because they've not set the hook properly. The clutch is pissed loose, and just to get a good bit of film for the camera, like the last time I filmed a bite was on Kingfisher at Bluebell last October, and what actually happened was a kingfisher landed in the tree at first light, and I sat there watching the lake and I went, oh, there's a kingfisher there. And I was filming a kingfisher. I go, look at that. It's amazing. Mist coming up over, beep, beep. And you just, like, that was my opportunity to film a bite. But what actually happens in reality, the phone gets dropped in a fraction and I'm down on the rod. It doesn't even cross my mind to think, oh, yeah, let's carry on filming. Let's see what happens here. No. Because the longer that's going, you're reducing the chances of you. The further that fish goes, the less chance you've got of landing it. It's just many, many things wrong with the whole thing. I'm not moaning. There's too much moaning, slagging off in carp fishing. I'm not going to get. It's just not something that I would really recommend doing if you want to get noticed or something.
Fair dues. The other thing, then, this is a thing that you've mentioned sort of sporadically through all these chapters, from the mega work at Grendon through to the Essex sort of little syndicate you had, and the day ticket stuff, and also the carpology success of a lot of those videos was based around rigs. Now, when I talk rigs, and we've done a rig podcast here with our lads, we've done many of things that sort of highlighted people's choices in rigs. But for me, when I think of rigs, and the sort of stereotypical answer I get is, I have one or two and I stick to them and don't change them. When I think of you, I don't think of that. I think of somebody who very much has a large army of rigs, but also is quite interchangeable and adaptable in terms of the rigs they use. I've seen you use over the course of the years, and I've seen your media from 2009, before that probably, all the way through to now. I've always seen a real development, thought process, and sort of almost not being scared to sort of tinker with things on the rig front. And it's a different sort of, it's a real thought about process, rather than, as I said before, well, I've caught on the Ronnie, so I'm going to use a Ronnie, or I've caught on that rig, so I'm going to stick to just that one rig. I don't know if that's fair to say. That is just my perception of what I've seen. For you, really sort of that whole rig thing, refining it, and the presentations that you choose to sort of adapt and use, whether that be situational, whether that be to do with a substrate, the particular spot you're fishing on, the particular fish even. If it comes out on a pop-up, there's a pop-up, whatever. I always put you in that window. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it probably is. I've a lot of the rig stuff is, so I would try and sort of temper it in terms of, for the people that come to me for tutorials or for Carp Academy viewers, you know, I try to streamline, and I say, look, if you've got like a couple of pop-up rigs and a bottom bait rig, you know, try and put all your energy, because a lot of these people are like not quite, some of them are grassroots, you know, so I want them to focus on casting correctly so their rig's not tangled and getting it on presentable bottom where the fish are with a good quality bait, rather than how many little rings and swivels and yeah, but if you want to fish a wafter, you've got to change your rig like this. Or I don't want them to get over preoccupied on the infinite nuances of rig construction. For me personally, because just through being older, I suppose, I can kind of decipher it enough that I don't get bogged down in it. So for me, rigs, I find rigs fascinating. So I will quite often, because a lot of my fishing has been edge fishing, in the, like sight fishing in the edge, I've seen what fish can do with rigs, and that probably has been the cornerstone of my fascination with rigs and with trying different things. It's a lot of it would have evolved from those situations where I'm thinking, bloody hell, why can't you lift it out and you make a change and you put it back down and they come back in, and eventually you find something that works. And they've been some of the steepest, almost fascinating learning curves for me and rigs. And obviously it's only natural that you would then apply some of those things to open water situations. And again, in situations, I mean, really, my rigs over the last how long have people been mad for a Ronnie? Sorry.
What are you saying? 3-4 years?
Yeah. So sort of, and before that, a bit of stiff hinge. So the last, really, and then if you went back, like, you know, to the last real sort of rig thing was, you know, the chod rig. So so there you got sort of like 3 stiff hinge, Ronnie, chod, all pop-up presentations.
Yeah.
So about 4 years ago, I came right off pop-up. I use pop-ups a lot, like a multi-rig, again, like another key rig from recent years. Like they're all pop-up rigs. So I became very aware of this oversaturation of fishing styles that were fishing baits presented off the bottom and usually lightly balanced. I thought, I'm just going to fish boilies on the bottom because that's what they're eating. So that was a change that I made in recognition to the oversaturation of certain practices. And I think it's helped me. So I suppose, I suppose changing from a pop-up to a bottom bait is a rig change, but I think probably you're talking more about, that's a stylistic thing. You're probably talking more about the little tiny intricacies of a rig, like double Albrights or stiff booms or short bits and so on. And all of that does really, really fascinate me. And it is something that but again, at the same time, although I've come away from, I haven't fished pop-ups in my fishing much. Sometimes I still use them in certain situations. But although my core fishing is done with bottom baits now, I've also come away from the cacophony of attachments and things. So it is either braid or coated braid and a hook. Sometimes I tie it with what I call a prong, which is just like a really stiff extension to the hook. Interestingly, where I've been fishing recently, I went in with the prong and I was using that with an eye-mounted bait, probably about 1.5 inches stiff, and then 3.5 inches of braid, and started to get them not like front and center, or in the scissors, but just like not outside, just sort of on the edge of the lips. Yeah. And so I thought, right, okay, I'm going to completely ditch the stiff stuff, because I thought they were just detecting it too early. So I thought, I'm just going to drop down a hook size and just use pure soft supple braid to hopefully get it to going for, well, radical game change.
All wallop.
Yeah. And fish that are rarely caught as well, some of them. Like the odd-uns, as we used to call them. So, again, I think that largely, we was having this conversation this week while we were filming, and I think that there's no doubt in my mind that one of the key reasons why I fairly frequently encounter those really rare fish is down to hook sharpening.
You think?
100%. So every year.
Is this in every situation, as in your day ticket stuff that you're now doing more of, as well as your big fish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every situation. Yeah. So every year I'm blessed with fish that are the owner of sale didn't know that was in there. Or I hadn't been out for 2 years. We thought that one was dead. Happens to me a disproportionate amount of times. So the one thing that I would say that I'm really fastidiously obsessed with is not just the sharpness of my hook, but the shape of the point and how I do it, which, to give him credit, is how Jim Shelley does it. He showed me his style of doing it years ago. So even like this, so Dan Wildboy, acquaintance, good mate of both of us, right? Love Dan. So Dan has always been a bit like some of the other guys, like you don't need a sharper hook, you need a bigger lead, right?
Yeah, classic.
Tom Maker's classic, that is. Dan's never sharpened his hooks, and bearing in mind the people that he circulates through filming tend to have more of a similar mindset on hook sharpness to mine. It's amazing that Dan is never rubbed off on Dan. But we did a talk on hooks this week, and he said, like, do you know what? 10 years, he said, I'm starting to change it. He said, you convinced me.
He's never sharpening his hook.
He is. He's going to start sharpening his hooks.
I'm going to text him after this.
Text him. But the key thing about it, Hassan, is that the people are totally preoccupied and have been since forever on the sticky sharpness of the tip of the hook. But that is only a small part of the, it's not a small part, it's only part of the picture. So, did we do hook sharpening last time?
No.
Oh, right, okay.
No. No technical last time.
Do you want to do a bit?
Oh, yes.
So,
because I'm thinking already I've not thought enough about this.
Right, so.
And I sharpen mine.
Do you?
Yeah.
You might be doing it brilliantly, I'm sure you are. But there are, even like the company that makes them ready sharpened, you look at it and they haven't, in my opinion, done it how it needs to be done. And I'll explain why. So, to give you a bit of background, my obsession with hook sharpening, I'm using the word obsession a lot today. I sound like I need a psychiatric treatment tonight. I probably do. My fixation on carp fishing stems back to about 96, not long after I got Terry Hearn on board at Drennan. And I used to get, so his hook of choice was size 4 Conti.
Yeah.
And it showed me how to tie the stiff hinge and so on. I was fortunate enough to be in at the sharp end of that. And
nice. I like what you've done.
Yeah. So in the factory, not the factory, in the warehouse, we had tens of thousands of size 4 Continental boilie hooks. And so I would go on my lunch break down to the warehouse, get loads of these boxes of, they were in little white boxes with a black and white label that had Kamasan on it, which was the marketing brand. The hooks were imported under, and they were coded 4,300 was their code. And I'd get the size 4s, boxes of 1,000. And then I'd bring them up to my desk. I made a little jig for placing the hooks in. So I had the jig underneath a high-powered microscope. And I'd drop a size 4 into the jig, go down like this onto the, and assess the quality of the point. So we knew it was important. Terry was obviously a big advocate of the nail test, which I'm still very far from convinced on. I'll explain in a minute. But being able to check hooks by microscope for defects and flaws and pick out the really nice ones was obviously an advantage. So I used to send half to Terry, and I'd keep, well, probably 3/4 to Terry, and I'd keep a few for my weekend fishing. And so that was it. So that was hook sharpening for me from 96 through to, I think before that, we pretty much used them out of a packet.
Yeah.
And trusted it. Certainly I can remember, like, before that, if you knew when it was not what it was. So if you caught a fish or something, you go, oh, I'm going to have to change that. But that was as far as it went. So then from 96 through to the next evolution in the whole thing that affected me and my fishing and the industry, really, to give him credit, was Jason Hayward.
Yeah.
I mean,
that article, ridiculous. I remember
incredible.
seeing that.
Yeah.
That was the first, sort of eureka moment for me.
And you'd have to put that up with a lot of other key moments in carp fishing.
Yeah.
And give it its kudos. So for anyone who doesn't know, Jason was a hand, or he still is, a hand jewellery maker. And he was using needle. They need diamond files or
needle files, or files or something.
Specialist sort of file. And he had found that he could create these hook points which were beyond imagination, like bee stings. And he wrote about them, and it changed. Obviously, you opened all our eyes to what was possible. So then I had already known Jason, probably through Terry. Not sure, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I was in contact with Jason, so then I used to send Jason hooks from the warehouse. So I stopped getting them from the warehouse and putting them in a microscope. I'd go to the warehouse, put them in an envelope with a check to Jason and send them, and he'd send them back sharpened. So that stood me from about, what year would you say his article was?
I don't know, man. Anything like
2004.
Yeah, it was early 2000s. I don't know if it was 2004, but around that time.
That sort of time, yeah. So then that was my fishing from then, with the hooks that Jason had hand sharpened for me, which was clearly levels. I mean, it was so apparent that it was making a difference. So then the next thing that happened was the Jason's involvement with Jim Beardwell and the Jag thing and the Jag kit. So that was another big evolutionary step because it made it available to the masses. So then I got myself a kit and I started doing them myself to a reasonably competent level, trying to mimic what Jason had done, which was just really sharpening the very end of the hook, the last 2 mil of the tip section.
Yeah.
Which was not the best way to do it. And then the final stage of my evolution came in 2013 when I went out with Jim Shelley. We were both fishing on Bayswater Lake, and Jim and I had gone fishing, and he showed me how he was sharpening his hooks, which was another level on, and took it. And I remember when he showed me what he was doing, and my first voice in my head was going, as soon as he finishes talking, ask him. So don't you lose fish? And I stopped myself saying it, obviously, because of course he doesn't lose fish. He wouldn't be bloody doing it, would he? And he showed me this way of point length refinement, which took it to another level. And I since developed this understanding that sticky sharp is one thing, but when you make the end of your hook very, very sharp, artificially sharp through filing, then you end up with a very fast taper on the end. So you end up with something very sharp, but almost immediately behind it, you get this expansion of metal where it's not sharpened. And what Jim was doing was taking that all out.
Yeah. It was
So the whole point section, all of the upright section, from the tip of the hook down to, you never do the bend, just above the bend, was thinned out. So ostensibly you would have the tip of in terms of wire diameter, the tip of a size 8 hook on a size 4 hook.
Yeah.
So you have the diameter of that instead of that. Now, I say don't take it off the bend because that's where you need your structural strength. That's what lands you, keeps the hook in and gives you the strength to play the fish. You don't play the fish on the upright section of the hook. That's embedded, if that makes sense.
The pressure's on that curve, isn't
it? Exactly. So as long as you don't take metal off that curve, you won't have a problem. And trust me, since Jim showed me, and with all the fish Jim's caught, and I've been lucky to catch a few since Jim showed me, it's not a problem. So, and another thing just to mention is I've never ever had a hook snap off.
Yeah.
Some people say, I've not had one snap off and lost me a fish, but I've also, some people say, I've had two people have mentioned to me, maybe more, two that I can think of, that their bailiff or their club has banned hand sharpened hooks because the ends of the hooks were snapping off and the fish were getting these abscesses. All I can say is I've never had that happen ever. And that even if that is happening, then the hook would have to be so brittle. So when I land a fish on one of my hooks, the last 2 mil are usually buckled over,
Dinked,
dinked, and you can't use it again, but it's not gone. The hook's done its job, you change it. Going back to the nail test, which I said I was just going to touch on, which the Yateley boys I know are really keen on and have been for a long time. What I think, respectfully, I mean, we're talking about Terry earlier, but and Terry is the Lord, and the other people that advocate it, what I think they miss is that your nails will change according in terms of hardness and texture and durability according to your diet. So if you travel around the world and you go and spend time in Asia eating loads of fish, or in terms of moisture, you get out this, when you cut your nails, you have a hot bath or shower, you cut your nails, they're lovely and they're all soft, and just try and cut them when you've been out on the bank on a red hot day and they're like ping, it's flipping horrible. So your nails are completely variable.
Yeah.
So to say that that's a really reliable substrate for testing the point of a hook is a bit misguided misguided is too strong a word, because these are the people I really respect. But I just don't, for me, it's like we said earlier, things have to make sense. And to me, testing something on a substrate which is variable and unreliable doesn't make any sense. So anyway, been using hooks that have been shot. So why is it so important to have that structure thinned out? So you go from a fast taper like that, sharp on the end, to still sharp on the end, but really fine,
yeah.
By taking off about 30% of the diameter of the starting point of the wire. So what you end up with is something that has, so you've got something on the end called sticky sharpness, for argument's sake. And then beyond that, the bigger picture is what I call penetrational sharpness, which is how far that tip section will go in relative to the amount of pressure being applied onto it. That's key. That's like 50% of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the argument is this. A lot of people say you can catch carp on packet sharp hooks, and you can, absolutely. You can even catch carp on quite blunt hooks, with one factor being the determining factor. And that factor is if the carp is going to bolt. Now, if a carp is going to clamp down and tear off with a 3 ounce lead and the weight of all of the drag of all the line through the water, then it's going to hit the rod and pull line off your clutch. Even a quite blunt hook is probably going to do its job. You know, I heard a bloke said to me years ago, well, John Bryant down our club, he's had 97 fish on the same hook. It's like, I mean, God, it just makes me shudder to think. But so bolters and sitters on any lake, and it's not my belief, I suppose I can say without sounding like a prick, hopefully, it's what I know and what we all know, because we all seen it on underwater films. And if you do any stalking, you see it in the edge. We all know that on every lake at any given time, there are a proportion of bolters and a proportion of sitters. And it varies depending on lake, and it varies according to climatic conditions. So if you've got a lake that has got, let's say you've got a really good moon phase, you've got banging weather, the fish are hungry and they're up for it, then your percentage of bolters could go up to 80, 90% out of the stock. Conversely, if you've got awful conditions, shit moon, high pressure, everything else, then your percentage of sitters will increase because the fish they're more lethargic. It could be down to various factors.
Yeah.
But when it's really bad, the amount of sitters will increase, and when it's really good, they'll decrease. But the point is that at any given time, regardless, you will have a percentage of stock that is going to be predisposed to being a sitter, which means he's going to sit there, but use his musculature to try and dislodge the hook without bolting.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got a fish like that, it doesn't matter if you say, I'll put on a 5 ounce lead. If it's not hitting the lead, it's not making any flipping difference.
Yeah.
Now, if I take a hook that is packet sharp, and most hooks from most manufacturers these days are such high standard that you take pretty much any hook out and you put and like flipping, yeah, that's sharp. And they are on the tip. You try and slide it into your finger, it's a different story. If I take a hook that's packet sharp and I put reasonable pressure on it, I can push it about a mil or so into my finger. If I shake my hand even twice, ping, it's gone. If I take a hook that I've sharpened where I've done the entire job on it, and put the same amount of pressure on it, it will slide in 3 or 4 mil, almost to the barb, but it doesn't even have to go to the barb. I'm not saying in like that, that'd be sickening, but through the top layer of my epidermis.
We don't advocate hooking yourself.
No, but through the top layer of my skin with the same amount of pressure, it's gone down 3/4 of the way to the barb.
Yeah.
I could sit here for 2 minutes. It will not come out, and it's not even gone past the barb. And that is when you get a sitter and they try, and in the end, and I've seen it at Bayswater, I've seen it at other places, and where I was learning it, I thought, oh, there's a fish on there. I'm going to watch what happens. On those days where you think actually learning something's more important than just striking and go, I've got another one. And you're watching, the bobbin will pull up and it'll twitch. And I've had them do it for 30 or 40 seconds, and then it will go up sharper and start taking line. That's a sitter that can't deal with it. 100%.
But you ain't converting a sitter
on a packet sharp hook.
You don't reckon?
No, not a sitter.
Because it's not the full length.
It hasn't gone in far enough. He'll just get rid of it.
Because you can even get pre-sharpened hook now, can't you? But they're not.
They're sharpened on the very end.
Just the tip.
So you've still got that big shoulder. So they're ruthlessly sharp. They're dangerous. They're a big edge. They're an advantage over a packet sharp hook.
Yeah.
But the hooks I'm talking about are a step on from that. Penetrational sharpness. It's that versus that. You ask your wife.
But yeah, I get it, and it's physics, isn't it? The thinner the sort of the impact spot, the more penetration, like you're saying, aren't you? Like if you jump on somebody with 2 feet, it's not going to hurt as much as if you jump on with 1 foot, is it? It's focusing that energy and driving it in deeper with less required weight or movement from the weight or from the fish to do so. So there's less involved because that hook the first thing you notice, if you start doing that with your hooks, you've been fishing your whole life, you'll go fishing with hooks like this and you'll be bleeding every session. Like savage, like you'll be like one lack of respect or care. It's in you, right? Now you're a human being, apex predator, top of the food chain, fishing your whole life, and you can't suddenly deal with handling hooks. Now, if that's happening to you, what's happening out there? Yeah.
It's a weapon. First time I started doing it like that, my record, 2 tadpoles threaded round the shank, where I've wound in.
What about using them then if you're fishing? And I know that we've talked about this trade-off between your preference for bottom bait fishing, pop-up fishing. For me, if I'm bottom bait fishing, the sort of, depending on what nuisance fish are about or what other fish might suck and get away with the rig or whatever. Or crayfish. The blunting of that point, if it's like ridiculously sharp down to like wasp sting, perfect, and you're fishing it on a gravel spot when you've got all that stuff going on, where do you sit or where do you trade off with all that then? Because obviously you don't want a dinked hook point out there before a fish picks it up.
No. So there's 2 things at play there. So the first is that when you're sharpening, and it's well worth mentioning actually, the only hooks that I use have beak point. I've only ever used beak pointed hooks.
Right, so not straight points, no?
No.
Absolute no.
I never use them. Never have. And I'm catching a lot of odd uns, right? So when people say to me...
We've had this debate, there'll be somebody in the office very happy with this answer from you.
So when people say, oh, you prick less when you've got beak point, well, I really don't think so. But if you look at everything in nature that is designed to grip flesh, it's like a talon.
Yeah, talon, yeah.
Right? So I sincerely believe that if I hook 100 fish on a straight point and I hook the same 100 on a beak point, my ratio will be higher on a beak point. And I don't believe that it's costing me bites at all. So if you... So if you're using a beak pointed hook, because of the way the metal is formed and the way it bends over, it is easier to create a ruthless point on a beak point than it is on a straight point. With a straight point, you can only go until the front face meets the back face because the shape is different and you can only go down to a certain point. But with a beak point, you can create a more finite point. But the key thing with it is, if you imagine that I've got a sheet of paper here and I've drawn a hook point here where my fingers are. And then on top of that hook point, I've got the pen and I've done a line. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
If you see that through your eyeglass, you've over sharpened it. That line will break off. You can go really fine, but when you look through the eyeglass, you have to see both sides of the metal all the way to the end. Both sides, not a line of metal. Okay. That's no good.
Because then you've done too much.
Too much. It'll break off. It's too fragile.
Right.
But to answer your question about the crayfish and the fry and maybe repeat casting and so on, if you're in a situation, or if I'm in a situation where I'm worried about that due to any of those factors or maybe all of those factors, then what I do is I drop one of the two processes of hook sharpening out. I keep the most important one. So when I sharpen a hook, the first thing I do is I thin out that whole tip section.
Yeah.
And having completed that process, what remains will be about 1.5 mil of coating on the very tip where it's curved over, because I've only gone in a straight line to thin it out.
Yeah, you're not going over the... Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then stage 2 is blending them together and rolling the file over to the tip to remove that last bit of coating and making a nice smooth radius. If I'm fishing in that sort of situation that you just described, all I do is I do the first stage and I leave the last mil of coating in place. Right. So it's still out the packet sharp, but it's got that penetrational ability that it didn't have before, because it's that instead of that.
And you've also got that beak point for a bit of protection, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've not made it completely parallel.
You haven't taken any off the very tip of the hook. Yeah. The tip of the hook is packet sharp.
Yeah.
And because you've thinned out so much of it, it's still pretty flipping ruthless, but it gives you that bit of longevity to deal with the things you're talking about.
Nice. I like that. That makes sense to me. And pop-up fishing wise, you're happy because it's off the deck?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean, if I'm fishing to small spots that require a lot of casting, sometimes you do donk them. If you have to decide if you believe in something to such a point that it's a supreme weapon in your angling armory, then you're not going to ditch it because sometimes you donk one on a cast. You just deal with that.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a fascinating look into that. I like that. It's got me thinking. Away from technical stuff, because my brain's happy there. It's capped. I'm going to look at my sharpening. For you, the future, we've talked about this new aspect of the Carp Academy coming in, your Pennings Carp Academy, but also your own angling sort of being limbo, we should say, at the moment, in terms of a campaign aspect. What's the focus going on? I know you've done some mega filming very recently, which hopefully when Dan Wildball gets his backside into editing mode in a couple of years, we'll see it. That's another one. But what's the focus? Because obviously there's a lot on your plate now, as opposed to sort of mainly just the focus on your own fishing.
It's going to be. I've got one ticket this year, which is a little lake up in Lincolnshire, North Lincolnshire, actually. Again, no real big fish, but some real stunning fish. My mate, actually Frank Warwick, managed to get me a ticket on there, which I'm very grateful to him for. So at some point, I'm hoping to go up there, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to, because it's pretty much work fishing dominated for the platform, and not just for that. I've not re-strengthened, but I've built or consolidated my relationship with sticky and thinking anglers, so they want content as well. So I've got a lot of, I think I've got to do 17 in-session films this year, one way or another, with the ones for Carp Academy and everything else. So I've got a lot on, and I'm absolutely loving the whole thing. But of course, it means that serious campaign fishing is not going to be on the horizon. So I hope to get a few trips up to Lincolnshire. If I don't get round to doing that, then I'll probably venture back to Bluebell, because I love that, just turning up and you've got 5 lakes, try and find something and then try and catch one. So I love that challenge. So I think a bit more of that. And then you do get little opportunities for things as well. So I went down to Wharf Pool to film an in-session for Carp Academy cameras, and it's the only syndicate we've filmed on, but it's a small, intimate, really weedy lake, say small, it's probably about 4 acres, so pretty small. And we went down there to film a session, and we had an interesting trip, caught a couple. But I came away thinking about it loads, and it got right under my skin. Really clear water. Some of the carp in there are, they were stocked in 1981.
Well, they're older than me.
Yeah. Wow. Is that older than you?
Yeah, 85, me.
Wow. So but obviously when they were stocked then they weren't born, so they're older than that. They'll be 2 or 3 years older than that. So they're significantly old fish. And I'd seen pictures of some of them, they were like So I thought, you know what? Having done that in session for Carp Academy, and at that point we were still about 8 weeks away from launch, or a month away from launching, and I built a substantial buffer. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to see if I can catch some of these old fish. And I had, so the guy who owns it was a trade associate of mine, and got on well with him. And he said, I'll give you a key if you want to go down. He very kindly let me go and fish it. So off I went down to this pool, Hassan, with the sole aim of, so in this lake's probably, I don't think it's got about 60 fish in it, and probably 5 or so are the remaining that lived from that old era, like from the 80s. One's called the Dinosaur, one's called Baby Apple Slice, one's called the Pearl, which many would say is like the queen of the lake. And so I thought, I didn't really look at too many pictures of the rest of the stock. There's some other really nice fish in there. And there's a bit of a mixture as well, because Cemex had the lake through the first part of this century. So there's a few of those sort of Sutton type fish in there. There's these really old ones, and they had put in a couple of other fish in the last few years, which had grown really big as well. But I hadn't even seen any pictures of them, wasn't particularly interested. I just wanted to catch these old.
Yeah.
And these fish had sort of topped out at about 28 pound. Like, so they weren't massive, but they were like, if I catch one of them, that's a season maker for me. So off the back of this session film for Carp Academy, I've gone down and tried to work out. I'd obviously learnt a bit from those from those 2 nights that I'd done with Carp Academy. I'd learnt a bit about the habits of the fish and realised they like boilies. And so I've gone down and I found this, they were on the end of this wind. So it was October and we got an easterly blowing, which was very rare for that time of year. And it was blowing up what ends, huge sheets of weed, like savage amounts of weed. But I cast around and I found this spot where my lead was coming back coated in clay. And it was where I'd seen them rolling. It was on the end of this very unusual wind. And I ended up, on that first trip, I caught 10 carp out of it from this little clay spot. And it was like, one of them was this carp called Baby Apple Slice, which I think it was about just under 28 or just over 28 pound. Like the most ridiculous, insane, withered little fins and tiny tail, and like prime A grade carp.
Yeah.
And the other fish, I think I'd had 3 other 30s in that as well, and they were like one of these fish was a fish called Emmanuel, which I think that had come from that had been moved by Cemex from the Road Lake at Longfield a long time ago.
Yeah.
And what a carp that was. That was so it had been like an incredible session. I'm thinking, I haven't even got any tickets this year, and I'm flipping managed to go to Bluebell, and I'm having the fishing of my dreams, really. So I went back and I fished it another couple of sessions at the end of October, and I ended up catching the Pearl, which was the queen of the lake from 1981. It might have been 1982, but like ridiculous, like incredible. I'll give you the pictures. I mean, as you can see, there's just like really, really special carp that are so rare these days. I mean, these are some of the oldest carp in southeast England, I should think. They must be. And then I managed to catch this other one called the Dinosaur, which again, same sort of size, but just ridiculous character, history, texture, everything about it. And they were and still are and always will be 3 of the greatest carp that I've ever caught. And it was interesting that whilst I was there, and in fact on that very first time that I went there filming for Carp Academy, we had seen this fish slide out, which was like, what the hell was that? Like seeing a fish in France. Right. I suppose even more in a little 4-acre pool that's full of weed, and it just looked so ridiculous. I clocked it a few times. I saw it again on the following trip, and I thought that must be the fish that they call black spot, which had been caught at just under £45 during the summer. Now, I had never seen a picture of it, Hassan.
Right.
And I wasn't, it just sounds so weird to you, I wasn't interested in catching it, even though I'd never seen it either.
Oh, you wanted those originals?
I wanted to catch the originals. And I thought that would be, a long unfolding mission. But suddenly, by the end of October, I've been lucky enough to catch these old ones, had some of the best fish. I think on the second trip, I caught another 10 or so.
Jeez.
So in a short space of time, I mean, Roger, do you know Roger Hicks?
No.
Roger's a legend. He's like, Roger the Dodge. He caught, you had a fish called the Power Station, didn't you?
Yes, here.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Nashies.
Dodge caught the Power Station when its first ever capture.
Right.
When it was on the front of Carp Talk.
Okay.
Whenever that was. So if the first ever capture. Roger's a legend. He's head bailiff down there, and he would be brilliant to have it. Like for Essex history and character and stories. His good mate Dave Levy's. Anyway, he'd come down and visit me and bring some biscuits and so on. He said, "Cool, you're having it off here, boy. What so I told him what I was doing and showed him the boilies and told him about the clay spot and that. And he said, like, some people, like, if you went there, Hassan, you would catch, right? You would definitely catch. It's not like nails, but by the other side, like some people fish like all year and catch none or one. So to get 20 in like 2 trips was like, Roger was like flipping out. He's like, and I couldn't believe it. So we're sitting there going, what have I sort of like stood in all this? It was just another one of those fortuitous things that just seemed really odd. And I said, I've seen this like head come out like a seal.
Like a seal.
And he said, that's, I said, it's just too enormous to comprehend. It didn't even look like a 40-pounder. And he went, oh, well, that must be black spot. And I said, oh, right. And he told me it had been out at the end of the summer at just under 44.12, I think, something like that. So then the following week I've come back again. I'm thinking, right, I've caught some of these old ones. I'm actually like, I'll see if I can catch black spot now. Or there was obviously like there's another 40 odd fish in there that I hadn't caught, and I was loving it, and getting bites, and it was just lovely fishing because it was gin clear and it was weedy and everything was clicking together. And I was getting loads of vlog content for the soon to be launched academy as well. So it was a bit of work, but I was just filming myself and that. And
double bubble then.
Yeah. So I've gone down. This was about it wasn't quite fireworks night, but it was still really warm and lovely. I remember last autumn, it was like, so I've got in, unusually for me, I thought I'm just going to carry on working the spot. The syndicate was pretty quiet because it was very weedy and the fishing had been fairly difficult for a lot of people. So it was that sort of time of year now, getting into November, a lot of people had stopped fishing it. One or two other really good anglers like Chris Belcher and a few other people were still fishing it and working it. But I managed to get into that same swim and fish this clay spot in like 4 successive trips, which on a lot of lakes you wouldn't be able to. So I have to accept that it was very lucky I was able to do that. But anyway, so I could put in a bit of bait on it when I was going home, and I come back and fish it. And every time I drive to the lake, I think, I wonder if anyone's going to be in High Point, and get there and I'll see through. There's no car there. Can't believe it. Flipping heck. And there'd still be 1 or 2 other people on the lake, but no one fished it. And certainly people like Jamie Kramer, who knew I was baiting it, he just let me, same as I did. He was doing a spot up the other end. I left that alone. And so it was nice, lovely blokes. And so I've dropped in and I started fishing it and got a couple more bites. And by now, the rods are just, when you fish this, you're probably doing the same thing now. When you're fishing the same spot on the same lake repetitively, it really does become like a finely oiled machine. And I remember this particular bite came about midday, which was the back end of the bite period. Usually after about 10:30, you wouldn't really expect anything. And they were very nocturnal, the fish as well, partly because it was that time of year. And I had this drop back. I was fishing tight lines, which I don't normally, but 4 ounce lead, tight line, bowstrings. And it was upsetting the apple cart, like, and on this clay spot as well, and feed everything. It's hard to identify a lot of the time when anyone has a good session what that key thing is. It's probably just fishing tidily in an area they were in and using good bait. It's like, sometimes you can beguile yourself into thinking it's down to, I fished with bowstrings that time, they couldn't handle it. But, everything plays a part. But anyway, I had this drop back. Bobbin's just dry. I was like, I've not had a drop back on here before. Picked up the rod, like flat rodded me, like with immense power, because I was using fluorocarbon, which I use a lot. I had to backwind from, because I don't play. I'm a clutch man, always have been.
Yeah.
But the twist on a fluorocarbon is
horrendous. Yeah.
So I'm back on. So I'm flipping hell, and like as fast. This thing has surged off down the lake, and eventually I've turned it and I've got it to come back towards me. It's still 60 yards out. It's weed all up the line. And I'm thinking, this is different gravy to the others. I think the biggest I'd had out of there was about 33 or 34 pounds, and it felt distinctly, I could tell by the way it was moving, it wasn't weeded up, and then it just went really slow and heavy, and had it on for a good 10 minutes, and then eventually I had it fairly close, and it's gone by close in front of me, and the water is really clear. And the first thing I thought was, my God, it's like playing a fish in France. This massive flipping seal going by next to me. I was like, and then again, like your mouth goes dry and you feel all sort of jellified and weak. I was like, oh my God, please don't. I'd just come in, and it fought, and eventually it's come up again. It's going blah, 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 right in front of me, and I stretched out with the net as far as I could, and I got it in the net. And I thought, well, I mean, a 45-pound carp is massive, isn't it?
Yeah. Massive.
So I'm looking at the net, I'm thinking, well, that's massive. But it's going to be, it's a 45-pound carp. So I took a couple of stills of it in the net because it just looked like being in France, right? And I'm thinking, well, it's 45 pounds. It's going to look massive, isn't it? It is massive. And the width, and it was bulging out, even though it was in like a foot and a half of water resting on soft weed, this shoulders and that coming out in the landing net. I was like, that's massive. Yeah, well, 45 pound is massive. Yeah, but it's massive. Look at it. Yeah, 45 pounds massive. Right, okay, let's get it sorted out. So I got it unhooked.
Long fish or quite short or what?
Long and wide and massive, right? I'm like, okay, right. Well, it's got to be black spot. There's nothing else it could be. Collapsed the net down, got everything ready, put the sling under the net, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, well, 45 pound is ridiculous, Penny. Man up and let's put it on. Yeah, but this is like, so I've carried it, sorted it out. I'd already zeroed everything, got the mesh out, and I'm thinking this thing is just like there on the mat, like a monolith. And put it on scales. Now, this fish, the lake, bearing in mind that people like Roger and Jamie, and Dave Levy and people like that, it's like the Wharf pool is well known. It's been in Essex fishing history for a long time with fish like apple slice and so on. And then you've got black spot, which is like a mid 45 pound, and it's like the new era, and then that's massive, and that was the lake record. I put it on the scales, lifted him up, and the needle's gone round 41, 42, 43, okay, it's going to stop at 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, Jesus. 49, 50, 51, 52, 53. It's bouncing around 53. I'm like, hang on, I put it down. Like, my head's totally gone. Like, something, I've fucked up here. Something's wrong.
Yeah, I've done something wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
But I also knew I hadn't done anything wrong. So I just thought, right, this is too much for me. I'm zipping this up and I'm putting it back in the water and I'm going to ring Rog. Because I can't, I've probably done something stupid, but at least with Rog, I know him that well. He'll go, well, you're an idiot, but I won't tell anyone. I will just, I know. I put it in the water and I thought, no, I zeroed everything perfectly. I rung Rog and he was in Hampshire, and I said, look, Rog, I couldn't even tell him what had happened, because to say the words 53 pound
was
insanity. little 4-acre pool with all that. And so anyway, Rog was in Hampshire, and he said, like, I'm the head bailiff. Keep it. I'm coming. Like, as soon as I get there, like, make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's happy. And he spoke to the owner, and the owner was like, just like, do whatever you have to do. So Rog drove as fast as he could, breaking every speed limit. Got there 2 hours later. And
hot work from Hampshire, Rog.
Yeah, it was North Hampshire. Yeah, sort of the Yateley way, I think. Yeah, he did very well. And he said, "Look, what's going on?" I said, "Rog, like, it's black spot, but it's like it's bouncing around 53, and I can't even hold the scales properly because I'm a wreck." And he said, "Well, clearly something's wrong. So we got everything out, got everything ready." He said, "I've got these spare scales away. Maybe yours are messed up." I said, "But they're 1 ounce division, brand new Rubens, but yeah." So we got it out, and we weighed it, and it was 52 pounds and 12 ounces. And to this day, it's one of the biggest shocks.
Yeah.
Because to me or to Rog or to the owner, if you had said the previous day that there was a fish that size swimming about in that lake, we would all be like, yeah, like, ridiculous. But now it makes sense why this head I was seeing, I was thinking, that just looks so ridiculous. Even when I cast my mind back a month earlier to when we did that Carp Academy in session, I was with my camera and I was like, did you see that? What the hell? And then it all made sense. And this thing had obviously been eating everything. It was the autumn. He was on the mat was every kind of bait that you could identify was on that. He had just been swimming around, eating and eating. And I'll tell you what, Hassan, this fish was a solid brute unit, force of nature. And after all the dust had settled and everything, I thought, well, flipping heck, I've not had a ticket, and for big fish, I've had a better year than I've had for
forget this big carp season,
yeah,
mate.
exactly. It's
One a year?
Just
20 in 2 weeks, mate.
And it was just so lucky. And I think people thought, oh, like, he's found out there's a big one in there, he's got a ticket for it. But genuinely, until I saw it in my net,
didn't know.
I'd never seen it. I knew that there was a fish in there called black spot that I'd gone for, but I wasn't interested in it. I wasn't going for it. I wanted to catch those old ones. But then luckily after they came, I thought, oh, maybe I could catch black spot. And then, but never in my wildest dreams could that have happened. So that was really just a time with your question, like, what would I do? So if I have another year or 2 or 5 of flitting about, actually, you know, I really want to come and fish Church Lake.
Yeah, don't flit about too much, mate. Save some for the rest of us, mate. Just flopping out 50 pounders. I think there's not even one in here, but I'll have a go. 53 pounds. What? Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's just nonsensical, isn't it?
Mate, it's brilliant. And to be fair, mate, to be honest, the sort of movement, sort of post Tyson capture, I was a bit like, what were you going to do? The flitting about has served you well, mate. And there's going to be more of you on different venues with the Carp Academy stuff, and also with regards to the sort of the future, if you're doing so well on them. So long may it continue, mate.
Thank you.
I normally end these with quick fire questions, mate.
Oh, cool.
But you've done quick fire questions.
Oh, we did that last time,
in part 1.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end this with a delve into the world of Adam Penning, which...
You sure you want to do that?
I'm doing that, mate. Which is the element that I see a lot of on Twitter, which is your, I'm going to say, outward spoken in a positive way, political stuff, mate. Sometimes we don't do politics on this podcast sometimes, but it's definitely an area that you are passionate about. You talked about education with regards to carp, but you do the same, I think, with regards to sort of life stances, things, theories. People call them conspiracy theories, whatever it may be. But your vision and the way you see sort of life going, you're outward in terms of broadcasting that, aren't you, mate? Has that always been the case? Always been the way? No. Society is a difficult thing when you're talking about things like this, because it can be quite divisive. It can set you apart, to be shot down or to be taken the mickey out of or whatever. And we're in an age where a lot of people, it's easier to say nothing, do nothing, and just go along. Yeah. Than maybe bring things to people's attention. Has that always been the way for you? Always been like that or not?
No, definitely not. Whilst I would say I'm reasonably opinionated. I've never been one for like trying to dominate conversations or force my opinions on people, because they're attributes that I don't like in other people. So I certainly wouldn't. But I would certainly say that 3 years ago, it became, or probably 2.5 years ago, it became apparent to me that there was a battle that needed fighting or speaking about or standing up for what you believe in. And that was everything that happened with the whole demic thing. So, you know, and it's one of those things that actually it's less divisive now. If we had this conversation a year ago, you know,
Different ball game.
The amount of trolling and hate that I've got has diminished and diminished and diminished, and it is now transformed into regular messages of support and sharing of stories of personal experiences. But it's from very shortly after the outset, something to me seemed that something wasn't right. It was almost like, it was just like a kind of intuition that what the government was telling us didn't stack up. And there were very few people that were prepared to stand up, because people don't like being derided or getting slurred with various, and people are always quick to shut people down with a slur. Like it could be, so in the past, if I'd been in the past, I'd be critical of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
The way they were going about their raising of awareness and the things they were doing in America. I'd be critical about that. And then people would try and shut me down by calling me a racist and so on.
Yeah.
Like racist, the R word is another great example of something that has been used and overused to shut people down, and actually ends up sadly devaluing what real racism is, which is, even in this day and age, in 2021, I think it was, is my wife getting called the M word from someone on the estate while she's mowing the grass. And you think that's in 2021, you know, that's racism.
Yeah.
And we've dealt with it as a family, as I'm sure, you know, other people have. So, having an opinion that is non-mainstream on the fundraising elements of Black Lives Matter doesn't make me a racist, but people will throw words at you to shut you down, like conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Which was a term invented by the CIA to shut down discussion about JFK's assassination. Oh yeah, he's just a crazy conspiracy theorist. You know, and now, you know, most people seem to have good handle on the assassination of JFK, and it's widely acknowledged, even at top levels of the government, that the CIA was responsible. And they, of course, used the term to shut people down, and it is still used to shut people down, as is you're an anti-vaxxer. I've been vaccinated with everything except this. Same with my family. The irony is that people, even now, that are coming forward and saying that they've got vaccine injuries or worse from people in their family, they actually get called anti-vaxxers. So someone they've had a vaccine and be messed up by it, and then they talk about it and they get called an anti-vaxxer to shut them down. Like, you know, Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
Who's running for president at the moment.
Yeah.
You know how his voice is all messed up?
Yep.
That's a vaccine injury that did that to him. Not a lot of people know that. Mm-hmm. And people call him an anti-vaxxer. Yeah, well, he's quite entitled to be, really, then, if he's been injured by it. You know, so there is a real sort of crazy element of groupthink where people will tar and tarnish according to, just to shut people down. So I could see this thing with the government going on with the lockdowns, and when you look at lockdowns, what they did, not just to the economy but to individuals. I mean, what was really, really going on? I mean, when you looked at calls to the Samaritans, calls to Childline, I mean, what you just don't even think about it, like the incidence of child head trauma went up tens and tens of percentages. Those lockdowns did disproportionate, enormous damage, and were totally. So that was the first. So there were alarm bells going off from the start, and when there became a vaccine available, I was very. Well, my wife said straight away. She said, "I've had hay fever." It's like she has chronic hay fever.
Does she?
Yeah, like she really suffers. She's like, "Why can't they just get a cure for hay fever? What? And they've found a cure for this, like when they've never been able to do it before." And we've always had a thing that there are various things they probably could cure, but don't. I mean, because the drug industry per se operates to make money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what very few people realise. They think, oh, the drug industry is there to make you well. Well, if it made everyone well, the drug industry wouldn't exist as it does, which is the pharmaceutical industrial complex, which has a legal fiduciary obligation to its shareholders to make money.
It's a company, isn't it?
Drug companies need more people taking more drugs. That's how the model works. So these interventions, let's call them, came out, and then there was this really ominous, nefarious, worrying pressure from the government, media figures, and that seemed like the whole world at one point, except me and my wife, saying you have to take these, mandating them, coercing them, vilifying you, slurring, saying you'll kill your nan or you'll kill. It was incredible, and that just made... For me, it made the alarm bells ring even more. Why are they that desperate to get this into everyone? And you had literally quoting verbatim Bill Gates saying, "This, looking down the barrel of a camera, this only ends when we get the entire world vaccinated." Really? And so many alarm bells were going off. And if you fast forward it now, I want nothing more than to be wrong on this.
Yeah.
And I said it from the start. All of the predictions and the fears are all now beginning to manifest in people's real life lived experiences. I mean, the number of really well-known anglers that I know personally that have been afflicted. One rang me last week, a really well-known angler. He wanted a reference for someone he had employed. He knew I worked for him. So he rang me, so, "Oh, how you doing?"
Okay, yeah.
Not spoke for ages, have a nice chat. "How you doing?" He said, "Oh, I've been out the game." He said, "I had a heart attack last year."
Jeez.
I said, "Blimey." I said, like yeah. He said, totally out of the blue. I assumed he didn't know my stance because a lot of people don't go on Twitter or whatever. And I said, "Did you have any of the jabs, mate?" He said, "A lot of people have asked me that." He said, and I did. He said, "It happened just after my booster." And he said, like, "I've never had any issues before." And he was messed up, like.
Yeah.
And then you look at, I mean, I can mention Martin because he's spoken about it on here. Martin's a good friend of mine. I've known him for 25 years, and he told me in very great detail what really happened to him, and he didn't get too deep into it on here. But there are many other people that I can't name because it's their own stories. Two of them are dead. Well-known anglers who are fishery owners, people in the trade that I know that have been messed up with myocarditis, heart attacks, strokes, clots. It's incredible. That it's not incredible. It's terrifying. The incidence of injury and death that we're seeing, and so people will probably think, "Oh, look, what is he on about? People aren't dying. Oh, I've had 5 of them and I'm fine." And of course, a lot of people have had them and they're fine. But as Joseph Fryman from Harvard and Robert Kaplan found when they intimately dissected the early Pfizer test trial data, the incidence just in those first 2 months of rollout, so it will be a lot bigger, but just based on that, was the incidence of injury was 1 in 800. Now, vaccines have been pulled off the market for 1 in 100,000 in the past. Even stuff like Guillain-Barré syndrome, facial paralysis. I could tell you another really well-known angler suffered with that. There's so many instances. Like two of my friends, not anglers, Bert and Chris, both dead from really rapid onset of unusual skin cancers straight after taking the jabs. I would be careful about people's, I don't want to name people because it's their own stories, but people in our industry right now with weird skin cancers that they've never, like, that have just suddenly appeared. Bert and Chris have both died, my neighbours. And so when it comes down, so you look at the history of the pharmaceutical industrial complex. Now, drugs, as I said, have been pulled for as rare or a number of adverse reactions of 1 in 10,000 or even 1 in 100,000. You've had drugs like Vioxx, Bextra, Gardasil, various other drugs have been pulled. I mean, the incidence of Vioxx, and Vioxx is a different story, but the key thing that people don't seem to understand is that not just our government, globally governments mandated, coerced and forced an injection of new technology, mRNA, onto the mass global population, which was bought from a company, Pfizer.
Yeah.
Now, it's incredible how few people, I know you know your stuff, few people seem to know this. What your government did, in essence, was got you into a situation where you, through fear and manipulation, or maybe because you wanted to go on holiday or whatever, you rolled up your sleeve and you took an injection from, my mum did it. I'm not knocking anyone who did it. You know, my people in my I couldn't stop my own mum, but, and she, that's another, you know. Pfizer has paid the biggest criminal fine in legal history for lying about its products, 2.3 billion. And the top 10 of the biggest criminal fines in legal history is populated with drug companies. Merck, Glaxo, Pfizer twice. So Pfizer, when they marketed Vioxx, I think Vioxx might have been Merck. When Vioxx, you do your homework, guys, it was Vioxx, Gardasil, Bextra. There's so many different drugs out there that have done huge damage. When Vioxx was found to have killed up to 60,000 Americans, the fine that the drug company paid was less than half of the profit they made from selling the drug that killed up to 60,000. This is how it works. Nobody went to prison or ever has. So they make the drugs, they pay the fines, and people just have to get a grasp on the fact that these... So if you look at mRNA technology, people don't seem to like it if you say Robert Malone was the inventor of mRNA, because some people would say, oh no, it was this woman in Germany. But it's irrefutable that Robert Malone is widely recognised the inventor of mRNA technology and holds 9 patents on it, right? So he's like the daddy of mRNA tech, right?
Yeah.
So this is how it worked. When the drugs were rolled out and people started to see adverse reactions and people started to talk, they were deplatformed, smeared, censored and shut down. Now, Robert Malone, who arguably invented mRNA technology, which the Pfizer, the Moderna and most of the jabs, not the AstraZeneca, but a lot of the jabs were based on, he came out and said, this isn't safe for using in the mass population. It hasn't been tested enough. There's too many question marks. Do you know what happened? The fact checkers on LinkedIn, Facebook, shut him down for spreading misinformation. So the fact checkers know more than the inventor of the technology. That's where you're at. How the hell did we get there? That he can blow a whistle on something he invented and knows more about than anyone, say this is dangerous, stop. No, we're going to shut your account on Twitter. No, you're not going on LinkedIn. And then like the alarm bells by then are just like deafening. Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test, polymerase chain. He is on record. Now, Kerry Mullis won the Nobel Prize for inventing the polymerase chain, which is used for detecting tiny little molecules and within the human body. He said, in his own record, you can find this stuff, do not use this for detecting viruses, because if you turn up the cycle threshold high enough, you can find anything. And he said there is nothing that you don't have at least one molecule of in your body at any time.
Yeah.
And if you turn it up, you can find anything. He said you can't use it for virus detection because it doesn't mean anything. And what does the entire world use as its methodology, standard method for determining whether people were at risk? The test. And so now they say, oh, Kerry Mullis doesn't know what he's talking about. He bloody invented it and won the Nobel Prize. And the fact checkers are saying no. So you start to see this compression of truth from people that when you listen to them, you just know they're telling you the truth, right? I can tell when people are being genuine or not. It might not be, if they're telling me something that they really believe, that they believe to be true. And I can usually tell, like if someone's got that integrity. So you get someone like Peter McCulloch, the most peer-reviewed cardiothoracic surgeon in his field in history, the most published. I don't know most peer-reviewed. He's the most published in cardiovascular medicine in history. He came out and said, we are seeing a massive increase in myocarditis, pericarditis, clotting, strokes. Do you know what happened to him? Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Deplatformed, censored, banned, lost his medical license. Really? What's going on here? And then you look at the funding, where the money's channeled from, who it goes to, all these people that do the papers on certain things, and you look at who funds them, who funds the WHO. And you start...
How do you get access to that information, mate? Because I think the key principle here is that information, or the information behind it all, some people can just look at things at how they appear sort of face value in media, but then there are people who've maybe got more scientific minds, more inquisitive minds, who want to know more. Where can they get that information? Because unless you look for it...
Well, that's been the problem, is the obfuscation of the real truth by the media. So... one of the biggest problems has been the establishment of the Trusted News Initiative, which has been signed up to by everybody from Google to Facebook to CNN to the BBC to ITV. And basically it's a conglomeration of media outlets, signing an agreement that says we will only report government approved information. What? Are we living in North Korea? That's not how the media is supposed to work. And that means that all of the information that is provided mainstream to the majority of the population is the government line. Trust the science.
Yeah.
Our science. Science has never been one type of science. Is about different opinions, questioning science, critiquing it, retesting it. No, this is our science is the only. It's like a cult or a religion, and you have all the entire mainstream media, pretty much only reporting that. So to answer you, so where do you get? I mean, I've been plugged into alternative sources for the duration, I suppose, through. I mean, I share. I'm not interested in followers at all. If I wanted more followers, I'd post nice fishing pictures. But I post a lot of stuff on my Twitter account where I put links to things like a lot of the best content now is on Rumble. Right. Rumble has a lot, but YouTube censors and removes stuff at a furious rate because it's part of the organisation. So Rumble is really good. Twitter has got better since Musk has taken over because Jack Dorsey banned me. He banned me for posting a video that was a pharmaceutical executive saying, in his own words, that the mRNA jabs are gene therapy treatments. Okay, they're not traditional vaccine treatments, which we all know, or actually we don't all know, which some of us know. They're a gene therapy treatment that manipulate your genes to get them to express a spike protein, or manipulate cells through RNA intervention. And so I posted this video, and I got permanently deleted on Twitter for not my own opinion, but from the pharmaceutical in his own words. Right? So you're thinking, like, what is? So eventually, when Musk took over Twitter, he let some people back in, and I sent a message to I don't know him to
Let me in.
yeah, knocking on the door. Said, can I come back? I didn't really do anything wrong.
Trying to do some good here.
Exactly. So he let me back in, and so I would say I've been fighting, in inverted commas, every single day since the start to try and raise awareness. And if you could have said to me that, or to anybody, that pre-rollout or during the rollout, that in 2023 we would be where we are with excess deaths, like it's our worst nightmare. So most people don't. When I say it to people, Hassan, people have no clue about what we're enduring right now with excess death. So during the whole COVID thing, what happened on the news every day? You get a little run. We've lost 617 people today to COVID. Every day they'll tell you how many people have died.
Cases and yeah,
case
Deaths.
numbers, death numbers.
Yeah.
All every day, just wearing people down, getting more people vaccinated, getting more people desperate to get out of the situation they're in. Because when people are, and this is psychologically proven, when people are subjected to fear, they're more easy to manipulate, and they want a solution, and they can't apply critical thought. That's what happens when people are subjected to fear. Laura Dodsworth has done an amazing book called State of Fear, which is all about how the government used literally top-level psychological warfare tactics on the British population. It's an incredible book. I urge you to read. Sunday Times bestseller. Incredible book.
Sunday Times bestseller.
Yeah. So getting back to the excess deaths. So right now, in the UK, we are running at an excess death rate, which is been fluctuating. I think for the end of March, it was 22%, but it's been fluctuating between 15 and plus 20%.
Jeez.
So what that means is, and that's over a 5-year average taken before COVID, right? So what that means is whatever the figure of people that should be dying each year, we are 20+% every week above it. And that equates to 1,500 to 2,000 plus people dying every week.
Jesus.
Of all cause mortality, and they're saying they don't know why. Like today, I took a screenshot of it. I'll just quickly read it. So today, it's just creeping out into the media right now, right? But most of them are ignoring it. Today, headline, this is on the Mirror. Brits are dying in their tens of thousands, and we don't really have any idea why. Quote from a scientist, right? That's today. That's today on the news, right? It's starting to filter out because now they can't ignore it, because these are figures from the Office of National Statistics. They're actual people dying. Morticians are saying they're handling huge numbers of dead people. So then you have, right, okay, so all these extra people are dying, and you could say, well, Penning, you don't know it's a vaccine. No, I don't. But why would we carry on using an intervention which has got zero medium or long-term safety data, carry on giving it to people when you've got inexplicable deaths? I mean, it's like we're living in the most stupid movie that you could ever write. Like, why aren't alarm bells going off? So why, when they wanted to report excess deaths from COVID, or deaths from COVID, I should say, every day on the news, drumming it into you, now we've got even greater numbers, and no one's just oh yeah, just ignore that. Just no one wants to talk about it. So if anyone was watching this, just search excess death figures for March at the Office of National Statistics. There's no doubt in my mind also that during the pre-vaccine period, when they were really trying to drum up the fear factor and pressuring people with lockdowns, and because they knew that as soon as they make a solution available, people go, oh my God, I've got to get out of this. Give me the solution, which was in the needle. Right. And it was very, very carefully orchestrated to build that fear and desperation. So as many people took it as possible. But building up to that period, that desperation, ratcheting up that tension, you could see that people would take whatever the solution was, they were going to take it. And then after that actual deployment of rollout, you very, very slowly started to see these increases in, like, almost like the messages I get now, Hassan, from people. I started following your stuff. I messaged you actually, and I was calling you this, that, and I've come. I had a bloke from Germany. He said, I just wanted to message you, so I'm ever so sorry for calling you a racist conspiracy theorist and he said, I can see you're right, but I don't want to be right. And I'm not saying I am right, but I'm saying that if we've got all these excess deaths, why aren't we stopping and investigating instead of right now continuing to inject pregnant women and babies with something which has got no long-term test data? And then some people say, oh, well, it's because of the NHS. We've got excess deaths because of the NHS. No one can get there. Right, so some people will be dying through late diagnosis, ambulance times. But what they don't realise is that these excess deaths are global in all the heavily vaccinated countries. Australia, Canada, America, France, Spain, Netherlands are all showing excess deaths. So it's not the NHS. Then some will say, oh, it's the record-breaking summer we had last year. It's climate change. Because more old people die when it's really hot. Right? So they'll throw that at you as an argument.
Right.
Most of the death statistics disturbingly contain the bracket 35 to 49. Like, people don't die from hot weather in that age bracket, right? So it ain't that. So you start thinking, well, okay, so what is it? What is the driving factor? What's the one thing that we've done that we've changed? And maybe it isn't the vaccine. But what if it is? And people will say, well, everyone's had their boosters. Everyone, like, it's too late now. But I carry on shouting about it because people are still on the next phase or the next wave. Like, if just one person watches this and decides not to inject their kids with an untested thing, which they don't know. So at the same time, you've got an increase. And again, you can find, just when you're talking about where to find this stuff, don't use normal search engines. Like, if you put a lot of stuff into Google is part of the established machine.
Yeah.
I use DuckDuckGo, and there's other search engines. Use something different. You can find incidents on miscarriage has gone way up. My friend messaged me last night. His wife was out with she knows 5 pregnant women, and all 5 women have got issues of just complications. And I personally know people who have lost pregnancies and had bad outcomes, and just like, and you think, and then you see like people standing up in court and politicians in Europe, in Yugoslavia, and saying, why are we having so many miscarriages when we didn't used to? Something is going on. And to me, to carry on being reckless with something which has been sold to us by the biggest proven criminal entity in legal history, it's like, why? But people just don't want to look at it, because actually the magnitude, the possibility is so terrifying to consider that most people want to just turn away from it.
It's interesting as well, because like, we're very scientific, I think, as a society. Yes, there is a lot of religious beliefs. There's a fair bit of sort of spiritual people who are sort of maybe more holistic, but generally as a society, everything's quite evidence-based put to us and scientific, isn't it? We're going by the same rationale of the data that you've come across there. It doesn't seem like we're using that same scientific base to sort of go from in terms of this. If there's that excess death rate, then surely that should be sending red flags up left, right and centre with regards to exactly why that's come to be.
But that's the most terrifying thing, Hassan. It should be. So why that to me is the most terrifying alarm bell of all. They know they've got excess deaths and they carry on pushing the drug. So then the alarm bells really go off. What is the real purpose? Some people say it is about depopulation. Maybe it is. You would own, if they've vaccinated 6 billion people, it's a tiny percentage to make a big impact in terms of actual numbers of people. So I said to someone not long ago, if just to like put this out there, if world government, the people that are at the top of the power structure of the world, if they believed that for whatever reason by 2030 the world was going to end due to overpopulation, I don't believe that to be true, but let's say they believe that the world would end due to overpopulation in the next 5 to 10 years, would they A, ignore it until the world ended, or B, do something about it? There's loads of different possibilities, and it's terrifying to think of. But I think that right now we are in the middle of the most significant, momentous events in human history. I genuinely do, and I don't say that lightly. I just think that and I don't know really what's going on, but there are so many scary alarm bells. People say, oh yeah, he's just saying anecdotal stuff. My mum, after her booster, 3 weeks in hospital, she's never been ill. She was really ill, and right now she's got everything from fibromyalgia to rampant depression. She's never been ill in her life. She's not young, but she ain't old. My wife's mum, straight after the booster, in the hospital, blood transfusion. This is just in my family.
Yeah.
My wife's aunt last month, never been ill in her life. After her booster, developed a rapid cancer. She died 3 weeks ago. Never been ill in her life. These are just in my family. My friend Chris, my friend Bert, my angling people I know. So I'm thinking there are obviously a lot of people that are having experiences but don't want to acknowledge it. Like a bloke who messaged me on Twitter. He said, 2 blokes on the cruise ship I work on had myocarditis, and my sister was ill after she got a blood clot or something after one of her injections. He said, but it might be, but I don't really think it is. Like, I think a lot of people are in denial because the scale of it. People have blind trust. A lot of people in the government and in the media, and they will just do as they're told and believe what they're told, and they don't think critically. And if you look at history and the things that have gone before us, there's enough to learn from history that your government has not always had your best interest at heart. And if you even look at, there's no accountability. Tony Blair, weapons of mass destruction, right? He's walking around now pushing the jab. He's not done a day in prison. Yeah, like the people at the top of the power structure, there's no accountability. They do what they want. It's all about money. Infinite money buys infinite power. And right now, the pharmaceutical industrial complex has built up so trillions and trillions of dollars. They buy and sponsor all of the media. You can see it. You can see it with the American programs because they actually announce it. Anderson Cooper brought to you by Pfizer. CNN brought to you by Pfizer. No wonder they're not reporting the truth, because they're getting bankrolled, same as the universities.
It's not in their interest, is it?
No.
At all. But what you're basically saying, and the most integral part behind it all, and you're giving a lot of evidence and a lot of thought with regards to that, but you basically are saying, instead of just taking everything at face value, take the time to do due diligence and research within those areas and not just believe everything that you're being told.
Yeah.
Realistically. Definitely.
And if the hackle of awareness goes up, then trust your instincts. If something doesn't seem right, then try and look into it more. I mean, for a layman, I'm not educated or anything. So I do read the medical papers, the peer review papers and so on and so forth. And I've tried to get a bigger understanding of it. But for a layman coming into it, you could do a lot worse. I mean, this what you do is the greatest podcast in the world, but close second is Joe Rogan.
I don't think we can, mate. We got a bit to go, boy.
You should have Joe Rogan on here, actually.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he'd want to catch a £50 UK comment. You know what I mean? We'll sort him out.
But Joe Rogan has been doing a sterling job of providing a platform for what he believes to be truth, or at the very least, just a different opinion. And if you go on to his list of podcasts, he has had some fascinating people, from Brett Weinstein through to Robert Malone, through to, and recently last week, I think Asim Malhotra was on there. I've just finished listening to it. And conveniently now, because of the furore of earlier on where Rogan was interviewing people that were smeared and censored, and they were saying, well, you shouldn't be talking to Robert Malone. So now Spotify very conveniently puts a blue flag on all the ones saying COVID, for real COVID information, check out our website or something. So all the ones you really want to listen to on Joe Rogan are conveniently marked with a blue flag.
Get on the blue flags,
but get on the blue. Have a listen to these scientists who and don't take my word for it or even their word for it. Listen to what they've got to say, and then maybe even listen to Peter Hotez on the other side of the argument, and you'll make your own mind up. And I know I listened to one, I listened to the other. So you got Peter Hotez in his bow tie, man of vaccination, immunology and everything. And he says, for whatever is wrong with you, there's a pill or an injection. And then when Rogan asked him about like his lifestyle, he's like, yeah, I eat fast food. And he's a great big fat guy. Yeah, I eat fast food and I drink too much beer. And he just believes that everything lies in drugs and injections. And like, so you can just watch it yourself and think, how do I? It's quite a clear path here. I've got Peter McCullough here telling me, as the world's most published cardiothoracic expert, that he is seeing. Like, just think of like what the governments have done through the last half a century and more, telling you cigarettes were safe, through advertising, through media people, the actors and that. You know, you think of like Charlton Heston and all the people in the 70s and 80s going, yeah, we smoke, you know, these are really good for you. And pictures of pregnant women smoking, going, smoking's really good for you and your baby. I can show you the adverts. And this is like, they must have been finding people with black lungs, dead carcinogenic tissue from the 20s, the 30s, no one did anything. They can't, because it made billions of dollars, and that's what they do.
What an incredibly dark web that we're going.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that. So like existing in a world of awareness. Doesn't need to drag you down with negativity. Once you see things, I'm not saying that I'm right about these things, but once I believe I see things, I feel a bit more empowered. I feel a bit more positive. I know that I can take measures to avoid certain, you know, there's other things in the world that we won't get into, but we could get into. And you can, once you start seeing, and you're a very learned man, and a huge respect for your worldview as well as your angling ability. But once you start seeing, you don't stop seeing. You end up seeing more, because you start to think. It's like the ability, whatever part of your brain is critical thinking, is like a muscle. And once you start working it, it's like a bicep, and it gets bigger and stronger, and you start critically appraising everything, and you start thinking, blimey, World Trade Center 7, flipping it. Well, that's another story.
Mate, you're a mine of information. Incredible angler, mate. Some brilliant chapters in there. Thank you for sharing everything as well within that. There's loads of different things. If anybody wants to hit up Pennings Carp Academy, mate, make sure they head to I'll put a link in the description or something for you, mate, so people can head over there, check out the content. We need to go fishing, mate.
Yes.
But more importantly, we need to get off the dark web / general view stuff, lighten the mood, go for some food and chill out. But thank you very much for coming in. Thank you guys for watching and listening. You'll see me soon within the podcast. Until then, Adam Penning, thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, Hassan.